Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 510 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again after a very successful Sunday fundraiser.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And the past 48 hours has been packed better than those little prizes that you get in the Cracker Jacks bags from Sam's or wherever they come from nowadays. But it has been an amazing past 48 hours of news. We're going to be covering it with all y'all right here, but before we get into that, I of course have to recap and thank everyone in the Lee Spring Army for the amazing efforts that were pulled off on Sunday night for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. Y'all raised $20,000 in support of Revived Soldiers of Ukraine, a massive amount, and helping to save the lives of Ukrainian soldiers over there. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the news itself, and particularly right into what the thumbnail and title is about tonight, which is the Russian army falling apart, and the thumbnail says that the Russian army is starving. And so, to give you all a good idea as to why, and we covered this live on Sunday night, crazily enough, we were the first to cover it anywhere in the world, and what we saw is that the Kerch Bridge went down, and I believe we actually have, we have it right here, a satellite picture of the damage that was caused to the bridge. Now, we can see exactly where the damage was caused. It was caused right here. So if we go to Google Maps, we can zoom in. And it was about in this spot right here. It's actually the opposite spot of where the bridge was hit before. The bridge was hit the first time right around here, right near the shipping lane that's highlighted on the map. This time it was hit on the other end, down here on the road bridge. And looking at the close-up of the picture, we can see that this road span segment is shifted over to the right a little bit. You can see that these spans don't line up anymore, and this one has clearly been dislodged and is landed right in the middle of the sea. And we can also see the second road span back here, behind this one, was also shifted over, but it didn't actually fall over into the sea. So we can see right here that the damage to the road bridge is very significant. From what we can tell, this span in the picture we're looking at appears to be facing southbound. I'll show y'all why. So let me see if I can orient our map here. No, don't do that. But let's see. How in the world do we orient the map, Matthew? Where's the compass thing where we can point this thing southwards?
Typically, it's over there on the far right, but I'm not seeing it. Maybe click that little target button above the plus, and maybe it'll pop up.
Yeah, that says to show our location. I don't think we
want
to
don't do that.
Yeah, I don't think we want to dox ourselves yet. There's someone out there already doing that for us, so we don't want to, make it easier. But, okay, so to explain why, instead of facing the map southwards, to explain why we know that this is facing southbound is because the railway span is on the opposite side of the picture from what we're seeing right here, showing that the satellite footage was a satellite that was traveling eastwards over the Earth and took the picture as it was traveling that direction, since it's looking at it from the left side of the screen going right instead of the right side of the screen going left. So whatever hit the bridge actually knocked these spans downwards, going southbound. I don't know what that would mean right now explosives-wise, but he is giving us a little bit of a better idea as to where the explosion may have occurred, and it may have occurred right over here, right below these bridge spans on this end, considering that the explosive force of whatever happened appears to have lifted up the spans in these two areas and then dropped them off below, meaning that the majority of the force must have been felt right in this area right here. But the Russian army is starving nonetheless due to the massive damage of this bridge. You see, there were two supply lines that the Russians could count on so far to supply Crimea and the southern front. And those two were the Crimean Bridge, and interestingly enough, we're starting to learn a little bit more about Russian supply lines in this area, and it appears that they weren't just heavily relying on the railroads. Unlike what we've been knowing and how Russian doctrine works, apparently the railroad capacity of the Crimean Bridge was not enough, and so they ended up actually having a pretty extensive road supply network traveling from Krasnodar to the city of Sevastopol, where it would then be further loaded onto trains and then travel into the front lines. Also, we understand that there was another termination point at Simferopol, which is centrally located inside of Crimea and has rail access to every other part of the Russian front lines, whether it be over at Oleski or Melitopol or even going through the land bridge itself. It is a very centrally located position, and from what we can understand, we are going to have to change, and I'm going to do this live, these corridors back to this little salmon pink color that we have right here, because it's all knocked out again. And this is also something fairly interesting to add on to as well. So up until this point, the Russians did have a way of getting supplies up into the southern front line, even through Crimea, although this area has been highlighted red for a good while, meaning that the rail and supply networks there are down. And the reason why they've been highlighted that way is because there is a little bridge just north of Rakove, around right here, that was knocked out, and it has not been repaired or replaced up till this point. And so the rail line would terminate somewhere around Chanhar, or even further up, maybe towards Novolivsivka, right here, and then it would be transported by truck up towards Melitopol, to where it would then be further transported by even more trucks up to the Russian forces there. Now that can't even happen. Everything that has to be transported into Crimea will either have to go by rail, meaning that their supply routes are greatly reduced in Crimea, or everything will probably have to go over the land bridge, meaning that it'll have to start in Rostov-on-Don and make its way down the highway through Mariupol, Berdyansk, and Melitopol, and then into Crimea, or then onto the southern front lines where the Russian forces are right now. And this is a very unoptimal position for the Russians to be in, because the road traffic that was needed to support Crimea and the southern front is actually pretty big. It's so big that once the Crimean bridge was knocked out, they had to start moving a lot of them up towards the land bridge. And the Russian government immediately came out and made the statement, instead of going to the Kerch bridge, go and travel the land bridge. And now we can see that that has immediately caused some very severe problems, because the highways in this area just aren't built for the sheer amount of traffic that the Russians require to keep their war machine running. And we can see the result of these massive amounts of traffic on these smaller, less dense highways, for the large part, that are in southern Ukraine. And we can see this right here. It is a never-ending traffic jam down the entire length of the land bridge.
And are most of these people vacation goers, or are they like trying to transport goods into Crimea for the war effort?
I think some of these people may be vacation goers, some of it may be army transport and supplies. Like these 18-wheelers here, we've seen a lot of normal civilian-appearing 18-wheelers being used for Russian supply efforts, so it could be a mix of everyone and everything, but it also involves a great deal of the Russian army's supply lines. And holy moly, Duncan!
Dang, thank you, Duncan.
Dang, Bamupa. But we can see the traffic jam keeps going. Oh, wait a minute! Like, Zoink Scoop, I think we're stuck in the traffic jam.
No.
Raggy, gridlock.
They got a new mystery to solve today. Who hit the bridge?
Oh, man, and it goes on forever.
It's safe to say they won't begin to their vacation on time.
No, they won't. And, you know, I think it just clicked in my head where that is. Let me go up here real quick to North Crimea, because that appeared... Yeah, that does appear to be somewhere around here, doesn't it? This is it. Yeah, this is the exact spot right here. You know what? I ought to get into one of those live streams where we play GeoGuessr, because I think at this point I would do pretty good, especially if everything's in Ukraine. But that video was taken near Salkove, and I'll show y'all a couple of things that indicate why I'm saying that. So first off, when we get towards this part of the video, you can see a little road stop over here and a sign for a gas station over there. And if you go to Google Maps, you can see the Auton gas station right here. And the gas station sign appears to be somewhere around right here. And we can also see this little building on the side of the road. And I'll show you all that again. So you can see it has the brown roof. This one has a similar colored roof. Actually, that's blue, but it is close enough. I'm not colorblind. I'm just kidding with y'all. But anyways... Another interesting thing that can be seen as they travel a little bit further down, right here, is what appears to be a massive amount of electrical poles that extend over what appears to be another road section. But those are not electrical poles for, street lights or anything like that. Those are electric catenaries that you can see right here in the satellite footage that allow for electric trains to operate on this main line. And so this video is taken right here at Salkove, which means that this traffic jam is not that far out of Chanhar. That means that the traffic jam is unbelievable coming out of Crimea, considering that it's gone up that far, and that's where the video begins, because it certainly goes all the way down to Chonhar, and there is currently a pontoon bridge that has been set up to replace the knocked out road bridge right here at Chonhar that exists right about where the mouse cursor is. So the traffic situation going into and out of Crimea to supply the Russian forces there and also move supplies from Crimea and up to the southern front is going to be practically impossible, at least for the next few days, with the kind of traffic situation we're looking at. And some of y'all may be going, because, you know, some people are saying this, and it is a pretty valid statement, and wait a minute, hang on, man. Let me do that the right way. It's valid, on God. But let me go
valid
back to
from the toilet.
But anyways, some of y'all are going to be saying, but wait a minute, they reopened the Crimean Bridge. Shouldn't that mean that there is a decent amount of road traffic that can travel from the Kerch Bridge into Crimea? No, that is not the case at all, because they only opened up one lane, and it is... What the hell will we call this, Matthew? The Squid Games of bridge crossings? I mean, if you fail, you die. If the bridge span collapses, you die. So here's the
Man, when I saw this video earlier, I was shocked that the Russians even had these people driving over this damaged section. It is super dangerous.
Yeah, this is insane. So all of the lanes are knocked out. So this is now a one-way road right here. It's only one lane. It's on the very shoulder of the bridge, and they're trying to get the road traffic through. So they have to stop one lane of traffic on the other end to get this one moving through, and then once they get a few vehicles through, they have to stop this one again and then let others over from the other side. So this is wholly inefficient and incredibly slow. There is no way in hell that the Russians could ever expect to move any sizable amounts of cargo through this kind of bottleneck over the road bridge at this point. The rail bridge, on the other hand, I have to make this clear, is completely unaffected by this attack. It appears to be entirely operational, so that end of the supply network will run and it will operate. But from what we can understand, now that we're getting more information, apparently that wasn't enough to supply the Russian forces in Crimea, even though rail traffic can carry more than road traffic. And so now they at some point in the war, we don't know when, they sat there and brought in road trucks to start transporting supplies across the road bridge. But we can now see them traveling down the one improvised lane, and we can see the amazing work of Soviet engineering.
Jeez.
Look, an old Soviet gravel slope. Wow. Oh my God.
Man, they literally just poured a bunch of asphalt on top of the huge gap. That is not safe whatsoever.
It's not, and they're not even connected anymore. This thing is not really even standing on the support beam anymore, or it's sitting on it in such a way that it is incredibly precarious. And instead of actually properly putting the bridge back together and repairing it before road traffic began to cross it, they're just going to sit there and let people take their lives into their own hands by just pouring some gravel over the problem and then getting them rolling across. Once again, I have to remind everyone that this is the country that a lot of people think would beat the United... Well, not a lot of people, but a few people out there think would beat the United States in a conventional war. Is the same country that can't effectively shut down a bridge for safety reasons and repair it before allowing people to cross and just pouring over some gravel over the problem. This is just pure stupid. And you see the other destroyed span over there that is completely unusable, even if they wanted to. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And as you can see, there is one car, only one car, is wanting to go into Crimea, and it's waiting over here patiently for its chance to go. But this is a terrible situation for the Russians. The road bridge is completely unusable. Now, I know that there's about to be some person who just crawls out of the corner somewhere and goes, one lane is open. But let me ask you this. If one lane is open, and you have to stop traffic from leaving Crimea or entering Crimea for the other side to go, and vice versa, how effective is that going to be per unit, per ton of goods, to be transported over that road bridge? The answer would be it's going to be completely inefficient. There is no way that an efficient supply line can run over the land bridge anymore. So that is completely out of the picture. And Crimea is once again going to be going through a pretty severe supply shortage. So that means that the Russians now have to rely on the only other supply line that they have, which is this land bridge corridor. We only have the railroads mapped out here, and we have the ones that we understand to be operational highlighted in green, and we have the ones we understand to be suffering or completely inoperable in red, and sometimes in orange, depending on the status that we can kind of assess. But right now, we're going to be putting all of these into red. The trains are still running. The trains are still delivering supplies. But there isn't really enough volume that'll be transported over road, which is a pretty good deal of the Southern Front's supplies at this point, from what we understand, that will be getting to them. And really, honestly, considering that this is the rail corridor, we're also going to be considering this just to be the land bridge corridor part of things. We're going to color this orange because I think that this would be a much better descriptor of what is happening in this area, considering the massive traffic jams and logistical issues that they're facing. So the entire area here in the Southern Front is in dire straits supply-wise, and the infrastructure just isn't there to support the massive amount of forces that the Russian army has in that area at this point. And so we're starting to hear rumors from the Russian front line in the south that they are starting to run out of supplies, practically being starved of everything, including what you actually starve of, food. That's going to be a bit of a big deal, because some may think about this every once in a while, but people have to eat. I mean, Matthew and me just ate Capella's pizza today, and that stuff was absolutely sick. We're not sponsored. We're not sponsored by them or anything, but if y'all are ever in Birmingham, Alabama, make sure to get some of that. But anyways, this is something of a big deal. And also, it's not just important that the infantry may be starved of food, but the artillery and the tanks and the infantrymen themselves may be starved of the ammunition that keeps their war running. And once that starts to run out, or once they start to get limited of that, the Ukrainians have a lot more leeway to attack the Russians without receiving as much return fire as they would have, and they may start to make decent advances. And so we'll be waiting and seeing. Of course, we'll just have to give it a little bit of time here to see how badly this supply gap is going to start affecting the Russians. But from what we can understand right now, it is starting to become quite severe already. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of the supply situation and how the Russians are literally starting to starve down there. And we're now going to be moving up to Russia, because while the Russians may be starving in Ukraine, it is time for summer camp in Russia. Matthew and me never really went to a summer camp, fortunately. I've got to be honest with y'all, that was very fortunate for us.
Yes.
But summer camps in Russia are far worse than the ones you'll find anywhere else in the world. This almost came, I'm not going to lie, I'm just going to say this completely raw and unfiltered. This clip comes off as a Hitler Youth video, but it's Russified. So I'm just going to show it to y'all real quick. We put it in Tambov, but we don't really know where this was in Russia. So here's the clip. And I'll be reading off the translation, of course, putting a censor on some things. But anyways, so keep in mind, this is a summer camp where kids are. And it's nothing but kids. And they have these two people on stage saying this stuff to kids who really don't know what's going on. And so here's the clip. So that we live in peace, so that the U.S. president dies.
Damn.
God forgive me, so that Zelensky dies too. And Putin prospers and takes control of all of Ukraine. And the little kids...
That's a real peace-loving woman right there.
And the little kids, they cheer. And it's just... This is just so ridiculous. I'm like... What the hell? This is just so weird. It's like, you know, you can actually spend your time and effort, like, actually lying to people that matter, like the adults in Russia. It's like, what the hell is the point of indoctrinating the kids? It's not like the kids are going to go and join the Russian army. But I'm sure that's coming down the pipe, though. I'm sure in like a month or two, they'll start allowing the conscription of kids or something. But still, it's like, at this point, what the hell does it have to do with anything? You know, this makes no sense. And also, it's just sickening to hear someone wishing death onto leaders of the world in front of an audience of kids. I mean, you know, we can all agree that Kim Jong-un is a pretty messed up guy running a pretty messed up country. But would you expect your kids to go to school and have someone up there at a student faculty thing saying, you know what, we ought to kill Kim Jong-un. We ought to have him hung up by his feet from a lamppost. Just like, would you expect that? Like, I wouldn't. I would be like, wait a minute, yo, what the hell are you telling my kids? Like, that's something for when they're like 16 or something in high school and they're actually starting to understand how things are going on. These kids don't even know what's going on. They're just being told, you know what, let's just start killing foreign leaders. That's good. And it's like, that's just weird. Anyways, summer camp is summer camp in Russia. And it's obviously not the Boy Scouts or anything like that. It is pretty bizarre. Meanwhile, I also got a really interesting picture in the Black Sea showing that the Ukrainians are having a summer camp of their own, but it's a all army, all at sea summer camp. Kind of like a fishing trip, but fishing for Russians, maybe even the Moskva. We got a picture today of the Ukrainian Marines on board a patrol vessel in the southwestern coastline of the Black Sea just about a day or two ago. And this was really cool because this was a bit of a bombshell. They're in the Black Sea. Impact.
That's a long pause right
Please
there.
clap. Please
Keep
clap.
going.
I thought you were gonna be like, really? Why? And what's crazy about that is that the Black Sea, we've been assuming up until this point, is heavily patrolled by the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. And we thought for the longest time that the Ukrainians would have had to conduct some very quick jaunts to and from Snake Island if they even wanted to get there, so that way they could avoid Russian naval fire from their surface ships to Ukraine's surface ships or something similar. But this ship, this boat, I assume, from what we can see, is in the middle of the Black Sea. You can't even see the coastline anywhere in the picture, although it may be off screen somewhere. And they're out there and they're not being destroyed by the Black Sea Fleet, which may show that the Black Sea Fleet isn't as prevalent or as strong as we thought they would really be in this kind of situation. And also, speaking of the Black Sea and the Black Sea Fleet and the Russians and everything out there at sea, this is something that I would like to make a real quick note of, is that while we didn't include any news tonight on Turkey's involvement in the Black Sea after the grain deal has ended, we are going to be trying to compile that news and put it all out once we get everything, probably by tomorrow or the next day after that. I'm wanting to make sure that we let the news come out because it does appear at the moment that something is being said along the lines of the Turkish Navy is going to be taking action to protect Ukrainian ships, but there hasn't been any definitive or hardcore news that has come out on it yet. And so we're going to allow, oddly enough, because usually we're some of the first ones to get to the story, we're going to be letting that one build up for a little bit before we actually start to say what's happening as far as Turkey and the grain deal. The last ship that left Odessa, though, filled with grain, it is actually anchored in Istanbul at the moment, and it's right there at this current time. Beyond that, though, that's really the only major news we've gotten of the grain deal and Turkey's involvement over their prior discussions with the Russians and the Ukrainians about the termination of the grain deal. Moving on into Odessa, which is the home of the port where most of those ships would have harbored and received their grains, we have heard that apparently the Russians have conducted a massive attack on Odessa, which may have overwhelmed the air defenses of the city. Apparently, it's presumed that 10 Tu-22M backfire strategic bombers may have been used in firing off the large number of missiles and also other objects that were fired at the city. Here's a picture of a Tu-22M. We currently do not have a casualty assessment at the moment of the citizens and soldiers who may have unfortunately died in the city of Odessa, but it does appear that some buildings did end up being damaged, as we can see right here in this United 24 clip. You see them showing damaged apartments. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing damage to the city of Odessa, and that may be part of Russia's attempt to act like they are retaliating for what has happened at the Kerch Bridge. Considering that Odessa is the major port of Ukraine at the moment, and Mykolaiv would be the second largest one, the Russians may be trying to send a message that they're going to be coming up with a stronger response to the Kerch Bridge, or that may have been their strong response. I mean, trying to categorize them throughout the entire war, this is about as strong as the last response was to when the Ukrainians blew up the Kerch Bridge, so this may have been their response. That may have been the entirety of it. Meanwhile, Zelensky was in negotiations with diplomats, or in discussions with diplomats today in Kyiv, and appears to have gotten in a little bit of a heated exchange with some of these diplomats as they were trying to suggest that maybe the Russians weren't so bad, and Zelensky appears to have taken that not so well and started to explain to them why they are war criminals, and also criminals against humanity, especially for the termination of the grain deal without further extensions. Unfortunately, we do not have a translation for this clip, but the emotions can be felt through the screen.
Ініціатива, подивіться, зернова ініціатива. Де в цьому коридорі військо? Де там постріли? Там зерно. Воно їде в Україну? Ні. Від цього залежить, нагодуються ли українці? Ні. Від цього залежить, чи буде голод в деяких ваших державах? Так. Для чого він блокує? Він фашист.
Man, he got done doing that, and he put on that little translator again, like, it's time to hear the response.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest with you. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what he said. I believe the caption actually says it. And I'll read this just in case if it is what he said. Now there is a peace initiative, grain initiative. Where are the soldiers in this corridor? Where is the shooting? Is it going to Ukraine? Not. Does it matter if Ukrainians are fed? Not. It depends on whether there will be famine in some of your states. Why is he blocking? Because he is a fascist. And that may be the exact translation of what he said. Nonetheless, you can see that his emotions are incredibly strong, and if you try and look into the delegation that is here at the moment, it's really unclear of what their goals are, because they're trying to say that they're for peace, but at the same time, they're also trying to excuse the Russians closing the grain corridor, at least from what I've been trying to understand about this whole ordeal, because for some reason, written articles on this are somewhat slim from what I could find on the internet. And also, I forgot to mention that involved in this negotiating group, this diplomatic group, is South Africa, which some of you all may know is a member of the BRICS Economic Alliance, which is a very loose coalition of states around the world that have united to try and create some kind of a parity to NATO and the G7, although they were nowhere close to competing with the G7 in terms of spending power, GDP per capita, standard of living, etc. Nonetheless, it appears that the South Africans came forward at the beginning of this diplomatic journey with some honest intentions of trying to end the war, but it also seems now that there is some attempt, and you can see that Zelensky is starting to get a little heated because of this, that they're trying to paint the Russians to having a reasonable explanation for shutting down things like the grain corridor, which you can clearly see Zelensky is strongly against. Of course, we're not going to be getting into the politics of a country like South Africa, because that is about as divisive as really any kind of politics you can get into, so we're going to be completely avoiding that because we have no politics rule in this channel. But still, the situation diplomatically with the African negotiators and the Ukrainians and the Russians is getting fairly heated. And also, by the way, the Russians have also scalded them like dogs, because the African delegation originally went over to the Russians at the very beginning of their arrival and asked if they would negotiate for peace and just give up their territory in Ukraine. And the Russians said, "What are you, idiots? No, y'all are stupid." And then they went to Ukraine, and now it appears they're trying to put pressure on them. And it's not really making a lot of sense, their negotiation points. But moving on from that, you can see that the grain deal is starting to become quite serious. But really, from what we understand about this entire diplomatic situation right now surrounding the grain corridor, the ball kind of lies in Turkey's court at the moment as to what they're going to do. No other country has stepped forward like the Turks have in saying that they're going to be protecting the grain corridor. The African delegation appears to not be that invested in the grain corridor, although they are the ones that are at the receiving end of the grains that come out of that corridor, so it's a little weird how they're viewing that. The Turks are the ones who largely have the power and the ability to face down the Black Sea Fleet and start to reinstate the grain corridor without a bipartisan deal in between the Russians and the Ukrainians. So it may entirely be the case that this entire thing relies on the Turks. And so we'll be seeing that they have two options here in the future. Either they can back off of their initial statements made by Erdogan saying that they would begin to escort grain ships into Ukrainian waters and out of Ukrainian waters, or we may see that they back off of that entirely and they do not engage in this threat that they made a while ago to the Russians. That was largely an ultimatum. They said, extend the grain deal or we will escort the ships ourselves without a deal. And so now we'll be seeing which two unfolds, whether they're going to back off or whether they are going to double down and actually stick to their word. And so let us know what y'all think about that. Do y'all think that Turkey should stick to its word? And of course, keep in mind that Turkey is a NATO member, so there are some pretty serious implications there. Or should they back off and just allow the grain deal to expire and not allow those grain ships to travel to the Middle East, Africa, and etc.? Anyways, moving on out of that and on into our location unknowns, we have a pretty good amount of them tonight, and a lot of them are really good. I'm not even going to lie. Starting off with our first clip, we saw a well-camouflaged leopard getting ready to move on out. Man, and the copyright.
Oh, some lovely music behind it, too.
Oh, man. And we can see the leopard rolling back out. You now see it spinning around. And I think that the Ukrainians may have possibly modified this one to be a Leopard 2 BV, because we can see those little rubber flaps right there that appear to be attached to ERA tiles. Yeah, in fact, you can see a little bit of a protrusion there on the sides of the skirts, where you can see that the contact one was added and then the net was put on top of it. So this is, in fact, a Leopard 2 A4 BV. That is so weird to say. I never thought we would see a BV variant of a Leopard 2 A4 in my life, yet there's now a lot of them in Ukraine. Anyways, that's the end of that clip, and great to see that the Ukrainians have been modifying and using Leopard 2s so far in the war. Moving on from that, we also saw the Ukrainians repairing a damaged Kerch as well. Oh man, we're meeting that one too. We see him spinning the tire there. And oh! Leaf spring! Hey, there's a leaf spring in there! Hey, let's give it up! And we can see that the Kerch is taking some shrapnel damage. It appears that this tire is in pretty bad shape. It's been busted. And we can see him walking around to the back. And we can see that this tire as well.
Ooh,
now that
dang,
tire
it's shredded.
That tire is shredded better than shredded wheat. I haven't seen a tire that ripped up in a good bit. But hopefully they'll be able to get that Kerch back up and running. It appears that the damage may only be to the tires, and once they get those tires repaired, they'll be back on the road again. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of a Kerch right there, with its leaf springs fully visible on film, and moving on to our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see some Ukrainian soldiers transporting mines. And I love to see the LSA support the chat after seeing a visible leaf spring on stream. That was like the trigger phrase, man. It was like Pavlov's dog. It's like,
Yes.
oh, sorry. It's like, yeah, let's get it. But we can see them transporting the TM62 anti-tank mines right here in the back of this truck.
Oh goodness, that's a lot of mines.
Man, you know what that sounded like though, Matthew? Right there, that sounded like the general that Russia's probably going to start appointing here in a minute to command their forces in Ukraine. It's going to be General Shagutness.
Yeah.
But they're moving these mines on through the field, and hopefully they don't get hit anytime soon. I'm assuming that they didn't.
I would say.
Yeah, I'm assuming they did, because they did upload this video, so that is like proof of life right there, is that they were able to drop these things off somewhere and then leave. But that is at least a few tons, I would assume, of mines. And so if those things blow up, there's not going to be much left. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip and on to our next one, where we saw a very weird video today. I'm going to be explaining why I was finding this one weird, and is that the caption on this video says that it's a British supply Challenger 2 tank of the Ukrainian Armed Forces undergoing a refit before deployment. But my brain, and all of its grand over-obsessive glory, notice that this is not a Challenger 2. I'll be showing you all the video, and then we'll be going back and explaining what tank this is. And we see the guy in the video saying it's a Challenger, but this thing is not a Challenger.
Ще багато таких танків. І дякуємо за це нашим британським друзям. Слава Україні!
Героям слава.
And we now see them showing off the suspension of this supposed Challenger in the back of the turret as well. This is not a Challenger. It's not a Challenger 1, and it's not a Challenger 2. And I'll explain why. Okay, so first off, the Challenger does not have externally mounted baskets or carry mounts on its turret. The Challenger 2, and I'll show you all a picture of the Challenger 2, has no external carry mounts on any of the variants. Here is a picture of a Challenger 2. Notice that there are no external baskets on the back of the turret. This one has external baskets. Also notice another interesting thing. This barrel here does not look the same as that barrel. That barrel does have a thermal sleeve on it. As you can see, it's attached along the entire length of the barrel. But that one's a little special because this one is made of cloth, or some similar kind of cloth-like substance. What this is in the video is a Challenger Mark, well, actually a Chieftain, I just called it a Challenger, a Chieftain Mark 11, or a Mark 10. Mark 10 and the Mark 11 are visibly the same, but this is the tank that we just saw in the video. These were used by the British for the near entirety of the Cold War, and were a very interesting tank. The armor initially was nothing but rolled homogeneous steel. To give you all a little bit of a background into this thing and explain where it comes from, what kind of design premise it comes from, this was designed as a replacement to the Centurion main battle tanks that the British had been using up until this point. And the idea was that they could create a tank that had more armor, more firepower, more maneuverability, and could run off of physically anything that burns. If you could find something liquid that caught on fire, it could be put into the engine of this tank and it would run. And so the first iteration of this that we saw in mass production would be a Chieftain Mark III, pictured. And let me find y'all a picture that's not a War Thunder picture.
Man, War Thunder's got like a monopoly on the photos, like when you pull up a tank.
Man, every time I pull up pictures, I'm like, can I just find a picture that is not a War Thunder picture? And you know what? We're just going to go with a War Thunder picture. This is what the Chieftain initially looked like introduced in service. It had no composite armor on it whatsoever. The entire turret was rolled homogeneous armor. And it was designed incredibly well off of the rolled homogeneous armor concept. All of the armor, I guess you could say, faces along the length of the tank were heavily angled, usually in excess of 70 degrees or 60 degrees in most places, which made the armor far thicker than it would have been if it was flatter surfaces. And this was probably the best designed tank trying to take advantage of angling with rolled homogeneous armor. But obviously, that went out of the window pretty quickly as the Cold War kept going, because anything could punch through this tank's armor. A Concours, let me think about the other ones. We'll call it a Fago, like the drink, ATGM. That one could also punch right through the armor, and also all of the Soviet-made battle tanks at that point could punch through. And so then they had to modify the Chieftain, and then we started to see what we'll just call the Chieftain Mark 10s, which is kind of like the blanket term for all of the Chieftains that have the composite armor on the turret. It got an upgrade, and you can see this upgrade right here. Now, I forgot what kind of composite armor this is. This is not Chobham, I believe. I believe it's like Dorchester armor or something similar, but it is some pretty beefy stuff for its era. This is composite armor that you was seeing coming around in the early 70s, around 1972, 1973, and this would exist on all Chieftains until they started to get replaced by the Challengers in the very late 80s. Well, more so the mid-80s was when the Challengers started to first appear. The Challenger 2s would arrive somewhere in, I believe, the mid-90s or even the early 90s. I think a few of those were around for the Gulf War, but I'll have to go back and check my notes on that because I'm trying to recite all of this tank information of the British Armed Forces off the top of my head. Nonetheless, this is the first one we've seen in Ukraine, and this is something I think that really needs to be harped on, is that the British are pulling out, apparently, older Chieftain Mark 10s to supply to the Ukrainians. I didn't even know that there were really a large amount of Chieftains that were still usable, because really the only places you see them publicly anymore are at the Bovington Tank Museum and their museum pieces there that run around the track a little bit and show people how they worked. And also, there's another thing to be noted on Chieftains. Has a little bit of a downside to them and something that is somewhat scary. The engine in this thing was revolutionary when it was put into the tank. It was an engine that was designed, like I said earlier, to run off of literally anything that burned, as long as it was a liquid and could be put into the fuel tank. The problem with that is that the engine was so advanced and so experimental that the technology at the time just didn't really exist to make that a reliable engine form. And so the British did a readiness test in the 70s to find out how many of the Chieftains would actually operate leaving the motor pool. Only 1 in every 3 of them had the engine turn over and actually start to run. Every other 2 out of the 3 just stalled and was not operational and required some repairs and tinkering to try and get the engines running. And that, of course, is a bit of a big issue when you have a 30% chance that the tank just doesn't work. So that is a little bit concerning. I don't know if the British are sending these with modified diesel engines that are not like the multi-fuel engines that the Chieftains actually had in British service. Hopefully that's the case. Otherwise, this thing may have some pretty serious engine issues. The armor will stand up, though. The armor is pretty decent, even in the modern day when you're going up against T-62s and T-55s and T-72s, which is what this thing would have faced during the Cold War. It will do fine armor-wise, as long as it's used properly. But the engine is a little bit of a concern, especially if the Ukrainians are counting on this thing to be reliable and be able to turn over every single time it's in the motor pool and then go up to the front, because it may not be able to. Anyways, Moving on from that, I had to go in a rabbit hole in that one because this is the first one we've ever seen in Ukraine. It does appear that it's being fitted out for army service, and that is very interesting, just to say the least. And it's also being misidentified as a Challenger 2, so I had to go through the whole explanation as to what this thing is. But with that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown News, which shows the evolution of Ukraine's drone boats. And this is a very interesting thing, because some of these I have never seen before. For example, really anything beyond the first two. We've seen these before a good amount. But I have never seen the Ski-Doo that's been modified to be a massive bomb. I've never seen that one before, nor the tiny looking little speedboat thing, or the torpedo. This is literally just appears to be a torpedo.
You know what's crazy is they use that jet ski loaded with explosives on it to attack the Sevastopol port, and it's almost like they got regressed in like design. They went from this really cool like prototype drone boat at the very top they used in the summer 2022, and they went all the way down to this like MacGyver style jet ski with explosives on it.
Yeah, you know, and it's a really weird thing, but it's fairly interesting because we still see most of we see the top two being used a large amount. And we saw this thing get used here. Apparently, the underwater drone was revealed in April 26th, so people got to take a look at it, but it has never been used yet. The second generation maritime drone pictured here has apparently been used multiple times this year. But we haven't really seen a lot of proof of that on video, so unfortunately I can't really attest to that much, but I can always attest to the existence of the top two, because many of y'all remember that was the first drones at sea that entered the screens on this channel. Those were the first, and they were heavily filmed. Of course, one of them beached themselves on the coast of Crimea, and some Russian just took a load of pictures of this thing and said, "What is this? I don't know what it is." And they didn't know it was just a massive bomb that they were standing near that possibly could have gone off at any moment. But the Ski-Doo one, this one is fairly interesting because you can see that all the others are attempting to create a low visibility profile, or an LVP, which is also what the narco subs are. They're all low visibility profiles. This one, however, is completely opposite, really. It is not low visibility whatsoever. This thing is very visible, and considering that it is just a remote controlled jet ski, it's fast, sure, but it has a very big profile to shoot at. And that is something you don't see on the other drones that we can see here in the pictures, but this one has a little bit of an issue with that. I don't know if that's because the Ukrainians are just trying to pump out really any kind of maritime drone, even if it has a low visibility profile, or even if it doesn't, they're just trying to get firepower out there into the water. Maybe that's why, but this is the first time we've ever seen the weaponized jet skis, and I have to say, seeing the pictures of these things after the news went live that night about the Sevastopol attack, it was bizarre. Because the Russians are shooting at these jet skis that just have no one on them, and they have hundreds of pounds of explosives in them. I mean, that's pretty bizarre, I'm not going to lie. But anyways, we're moving on from that little bit of Location Unknown News, and on into our next bit, as we saw a picture of a Ukrainian MiG-29 in flight. And I had to show y'all this one, because this thing was kitted out with Ukrainian colors all over the length of it. From the rudders, to the elevators, to the ailerons, everything had a Ukrainian flag on it. It just looked really cool.
It does look pretty cool, I gotta say. I will admit, though, I kind of like the other livery, that blue camo livery, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, now I have to agree with you, Matthew. The summer camo that they have is the best camo for any aircraft in the world right now, I would believe. But the winter camo still isn't that bad. It's just that it's a grayscale version of the same thing. But I still like the summer camo. I would agree with that completely. But still,
doesn't the Ukrainian flag colors on it though kind of ruin the camo like effect?
A little bit. And something interesting that someone told me, and I kind of doubt this, but I'm going to allow y'all to either agree or disagree with this, is that these camouflages on the aircraft actually aren't supposed to help them blend in flight. They're actually supposed to help them blend in on the ground, which doesn't really make that much sense to me, because when you think about it, if they're supposed to blend in, wouldn't they be the same color as the tarmac? Because this thing would be pretty visible on a tarmac, you know, a gray or a tannish colored tarmac like you would usually see. And this thing is a grayscale of colors, so it would be pretty visible. Or the summer camouflage, the one that's almost entirely blue, that would be pretty visible as well. And so it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that a camouflage would be trying to camouflage aircraft on the ground. Honestly, I think that camouflage in the modern day just is a way to make aircraft look a certain way, because camouflage in the modern world doesn't even really matter. Aircraft can see each other over the horizon, so it's not really like you're trying to hide yourself from the naked eye, because the naked eye isn't what is going to be locking the missile onto you. It is going to be the radar picking up your cross section. So, you know, it's, I don't know. I don't know what camos really are used for anymore, and I think that's why countries like the West, well, the Western world as a whole, has largely moved away from putting any camouflages onto aircraft, because they're practically useless. And that's why Eurofighter Typhoons just have that weird gray color, and also every single U.S. aircraft in service is just a monotone one single color. It's either just dark gray, light gray, or solid black if it's a stealth aircraft. But still, you know, beyond the whole nitpicking of camos, it is a really cool camo nonetheless. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little interesting picture right there and on into the Russian casualty reports. And I hate to tell you, Matthew, you're going to be let down.
Oh, man, they got 0?
They got 0.
Man, how's that possible to go from so many to 0 all of a sudden?
And man, they just had a dry spell today. They had a really dry one.
Damn.
But one day, they will come back around. I mean, Jesus UCSB put in the shivering bobcat of anticipation into the reply section. So, I mean, no one's looking forward to being blown up. And also, thank you, Jesus, for being a G and putting that thing in there. And are there any other...
Yes, keep our hopes up.
Keep our hopes up, because one day there will be another one. Oh, Jimmy D, those bobcats are hiding. And he even put in a whole animation.
Man, that bobcat has like a cover over it. I guess that's for the in hiding part.
Man, they be hiding there. They said they can't see me if I put the blanket over the front.
Yes,
but let's see. Melissa Smith, no bobcats. Very sad. And let's see.
Damn.
Man.
I like how all the comments are all like sad for Enforcer Matt not getting any bobcat kills. That's nice.
Yeah, they're all like supportive. Like, it's okay. There'll be some tomorrow. If there's not any tomorrow, we quit. I'm just kidding. We're not quitting. But anyways, moving on from that and on to the rest of the casualty report. While the Bobcat losses were practically non-existent, apparently the Ukrainians sacrificed the Bobcats today for the infantry losses. 710 Russian soldiers were schwacked over the past 24 hours alone, which is a fairly high number. That's just 90 short of an entire battalion tactical group being wiped out in terms of effective manpower on the front lines. Not only that, but the losses in really every other frontline category were pretty high. 17 armored personnel carriers were lost, 27 supply trucks were also lost as well, along with 4 tanks, 38 artillery systems, which is a huge number. That is around 10 entire artillery batteries lost in 24 hours, along with 7 drones and 4 MLRSs. Nothing else was lost today rather than those equipment categories. But it was still a massive loss in those few categories. And we can see that whatever is happening on the lines, they are starting to take incredibly high losses. And that may be because the Ukrainians are starting to put a lot of pressure onto the area around Staromayorsk and Staromanivka, which we'll be getting to here in a minute. But still, the losses are nothing to scoff at today. They are very high and showing that the Ukrainians are really putting in the maximum amount of effort in trying to destroy the Russian army and end this war as soon as possible. And so with that, it is now time for us to move on into our frontline analysis, starting in the northeast and moving on all the way down into the southern front right here at Sherabaki, I believe.
That's a tough one.
You know what? Sherabaki is how it would be pronounced in Ukrainian, I believe. And so I don't know why in the English version it looks so difficult. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on into that front line. But before we get there, we have to address some stuff that I've been seeing in the live chat. And it has been absolutely insane tonight. A lot of y'all have been going off in the live chat. We've been seeing at least 100 chats a minute for an entire hour at this point. And a lot of it's been on a whole bunch of interesting things too. Y'all have been throwing out questions and ideas that we haven't even considered at all, and they're very interesting. And Matthew's been throwing up questions, he's been throwing up questions to all of y'all to vote on, so that way we can see what all of y'all are thinking about some of these questions that we're seeing flung around in the live chat so much tonight. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so hopping into our first question segment, we have our first poll to address, and it says, Russia has reopened a lane on the Kerch Bridge while still heavily damaged, and what are your thoughts? 67% said the bridge is too crucial to close, 14% said they will close it again soon, and 14% also said it's not really reopened, while 5% said unsure. And on this one, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that the Kerch Bridge is crucial to Russia's war effort. It's also crucial for the vacationers going out of Russia to use that bridge to get to their favorite vacation spot, which is basically stolen Ukrainian land. So I think the bridge is too crucial to close, and that's why we see them defying death by driving over that section where they had to put asphalt down over that massive gap in the bridge. But Enforcer, what say you?
What I say is this. July 18th, 2023. Vadim, the bridge is closed. But man, I've got a freaking Airbnb in Sevastopol. What do we do? We're just going to have to drive over it. Are you crazy, man? Listen, man, I paid 6 million rubles, that's equivalent to 10 US dollars, for this Airbnb, Blad. I have to go. And then they just drive right over the bridge. They've got to keep it open to some extent, and that's why we see that they put the gravel over the little gap that's existing there now, so that way they could try and keep some traffic going. It's not a strategic concern anymore. I think they're just trying to keep traffic rolling for the freaked out Russians that are going to be stuck inside of Crimea, and so that is probably what we're seeing as to why they're keeping the bridge open for now. They'll probably have to close it for a little bit to get those bridge spans repaired completely, but for now it appears that they're trying to keep the whole thing going. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second poll says Russia has carried out major attacks on Ukraine since the Kerch attack, and is that the extent of Russia's response? 49% said yes, that is Russia's full response. 26% said it's hard to tell, but maybe. 15% said no, worse is coming from Russia, and 9% said unsure. And on this one, I think that might be Russia's full response. And of course, I'm not trying to minimize the extent of the attacks. They were pretty major attacks against Ukraine, and I believe they were mostly drone attacks. But I think that is probably going to be it. And it could have been worse. Russia could have, gone more extreme, like they like to always threaten. But it appears like this is probably going to be it. So I'm with the 49%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think I would also have to be with a 49%. I think the responses already came and went. But of course, we always have to wait, and we always have to see if there's going to be a larger response, because you never really know. You just never really do. Because that could have been the response, but they could launch another missile attack, and that's the end of their response then. But I would largely have to go under the idea of the precedent that the Russians have laid out so far, and that their responses are always lackluster. There are some people out there right now who are quaking and shivering their timbers, quaking in their boots, thinking that the Russians are about to start nuking the West or nuking Ukraine. And having been here for 510 days, doing this as a full-time job, 60 hours a week, and analyzing and breaking down every single thing that has been ever said or put to film and picture, I can tell everyone with wholehearted assuredness there will be no nuclear attacks anywhere in the world by the Russians. That is nothing but hype talk by them. They wish they could do something like that because they know they have no way to back up a nuclear attack once it happens. They are going to be completely at the whim of the world unless they want to get into a mutually assured destruction, and then they don't win, their foe doesn't win, everybody loses. And that's a war nobody wants to fight because everyone always wants to end up winning the war. So it means nothing if you can destroy your enemy, but you're also destroyed as well. So they will not be conducting any kind of nuclear warfare whatsoever. This is probably about the extent of their response. So I'd have to go with the 49%. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have one last poll to address, and it says the U.S. says Ukraine has significant combat power, not yet committed to the war, and why is this? It looks like 78% said it's likely true and Ukraine is saved up. It looks like 9% said it's possible, but I'm unsure. 7% said unsure, which is kind of like the same as the third option there, and 6% said it's likely false and the U.S. is exaggerating. And on this one, I would have to say that I'm actually unsure. It's possible, but it seems like Ukraine would have thrown everything they had at this counteroffensive. But also at the same time, I could see where it'd be very smart to save up equipment in case this war drags out, because it looks like it might do that for many years. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that that's definitely true, because every single country in the world in war is always smart to have vehicles, equipment, and troops in reserve. It's not smart to put everything you have on the front lines. The Russians have actually done that right now. And you can see that what the results are is that units wear down, they start running out of supplies, they can't resupply effectively because they're constantly on the front lines. which makes it pretty hard to get deliveries of new equipment and personnel because they get thrown right onto the battlefield and they can be immediately destroyed then, or there really is no way for them to get there without being destroyed. So it is pretty smart to have a reserve, and I think that's a great thing to know that the Ukrainians haven't committed everything yet, because it shows that if they need to, there is more potential there, and also it shows proper strategy and proper war planning. Because if they had everything committed, I would actually be quite concerned, because they would have nothing to pull out of their sleeve if they needed it. And so with that, I hope that addresses that in my opinion, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, we are fresh out of polls. That was our third and last one for now, but many more will be posted very soon. And our very first super chat, as we move on to those, is from Duncan VR, who puts in a very generous $120 donation. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that support, and also, of course, for being a longtime channel viewer. And he says, Ba Muba. Happy birthday to Enforcer Matt. Ba Ba. Happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. Meow. Ba. Happy birthday to Enforcer Matt. Thank you for the third time. Thank you. He says, rough, ba, oink. Oh, man, I'm getting so much respect around here. He says, oink, wink, ba, ba. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Man, he's putting me through the ringer tonight. He said, ba, ba. Prudler has stinky pants. Ba, ba, ba. Happy birthday, Enforcer Matt. And thank you very much, Duncan. Obviously, I can't say the exact date my birthday is, but it is this month. So thank you very much for the happy early birthday wishes and the support as well. And also putting me through my paces once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I've got to thank you so much for the mass amount of support, Duncan, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Folks like you make this channel possible, and make it possible for me to do what I've always wanted to do, which is to cover news and do things like we are right now. And I got to thank you so much for that. And also thank you for wishing Matthew a happy birthday. It isn't his birthday today, but it is coming around the corner. It's fairly soon, actually. I think it's less than a week away at this point. I'm not going to say the exact day because Matthew's wanting to keep that secret, but maybe we'll make a decision in the background and we'll actually publicly celebrate his birthday when it comes, but that'll be something we have to talk about behind the scenes. Still, thank you so much once again for wishing him a happy birthday, an early one, because it will be coming around the corner, and we are going to hopefully have an amazing one. Matthew is finally getting over being sick, nearly, although it's still coming in like ebbs and flows. And I'm freezing to the bones tonight, and now I'm going through hot flashes, so I think I may actually end up being getting the early stages of sickness. So hopefully I'm not. Just being completely transparent with y'all. I'm going to try and keep the streams running if I get sick, but I can't really guarantee that, because if I get dog sick, there probably wouldn't even be any reason to me trying to go live, because I wouldn't be able to carry the energy or anything like that I normally do. But still, oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, Matthew gets a lot of respect around here. Oh man, too much. Oh man, I never get a congratulations. I never get a congratulations for my happy birthday. Oh man, I'm telling you. But Matthew gets them all the time. Oh man, I'm telling you, the cult of Matt. Oh man. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much, Duncan VR, for helping this channel to keep on running. You help us to keep the lights on. You help us to keep this channel rolling, and you help me to be able to do something that I would have never thought in my wildest dreams I would have been able to do. And I've got to thank you so much for also helping us to stay on the air, because I get to be on air and do one of the things I never thought I would be able to do with an audience I never thought we would have. The most amazing and incredible audience out there is the Leaf Spring Army by far. And interestingly enough, we actually got some statistics on Sunday night stream when the Crimean Bridge blew up. And y'all would not believe, well, actually I can't say a few of them because they are people that we just cannot mention. But we ended up beating CBS, PBS NewsHour, and ABC for live viewership. And we also beat the richest man in the world for viewership, which apparently was running a live stream that night. We beat him. And we also beat some very political people, like, on both sides. I was really blown away. And that was something that when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So we pretty much peaked behind the scenes. I don't think we can top Sunday night, although we did that one time when we got up to 20,000. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat of our first question segment goes to Trister1, also longtime channel viewer, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. And also, welcome back to you, Trister. You did take a small hiatus, and it's good to have you back. And he says, have Matthew do some more animal noises.
Do them.
Bamuba, I'm telling you. Oh, man.
And I hope
That was
you-
like mainly Rodney Dangerfield, but that should work.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I always get treated like a dog when I go home. But still, thank you so much for the support, Tristan. Welcome back. I hope you've been having a fun time back. And thank you so much once again for the support and supporting the Animal Noises Fund. It takes a lot of vocal training to be able to do that live on air. It takes us just imagining it up in our heads, which takes a lot of mental thought. And I gotta thank you so much for supporting that fund and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the last one of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the Frontline news itself.
All right, and the last one of this segment goes to none other than BC Skyman, who puts in a very generous $50 donation as well, and sadly does not leave a comment. But BC, thank you very much for our support, and also the chat went away on the top bar, so I can't see what super sticker it was, but I think it was one of those YouTube creatures riding the rocket. But thank you very much for our support as always, and Enforcer, what say you?
Man, he said riding the rocket like that thing was riding the lightning. It's getting executed up there. That thing be riding the rocket. You know, that's going to be a new way to execute prisoners in Alabama. You know, like that law that was passed where you can execute them under any means. We're going to start strapping them to starships and shooting them off into space. But anyways, I got to thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, because, of course, he didn't throw in a comment. I know you threw in a super sticker, but I can't even see the super chat anymore to see what the super sticker was. Let me see if I can actually go through here. And I think I can actually find... Hey, wait a minute, I found it. It is a rhino that morphs into a transformer, it appears. Or some kind of a mech. So, thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Scammon, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you make this thing possible. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to keep this thing going, because you help us to keep the lights on, you help us to do this as a job, and you help us to be able to do something. And I've been trying to say this a lot because I think it's something I don't even tell people enough. All of y'all supporting this channel, watching it, subscribing, and everything else, and also supporting us in the super chats. Y'all help us to be able to do this as a job. And this is something that I'm truly honored to do, and I always want people to know that, and I always want y'all to know that we're greatly appreciative for all the support that y'all give to this channel, so that way we can keep on doing it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman, and everyone else who's supported us so far tonight, because y'all make this thing possible. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of the question segment and back on into the Frontline news, starting off in the area around Dubrova. And we have seen something interesting here. We've actually seen something interesting in the entire northeastern area. The Russians have made two tiny pushes. Boop. Right there. There we have it. Those are the only two pushes they made. They made one right here where they took the small forested area around the Zarabets River, which is largely the size of a creek. So they took a small area about the size of a field here, and all the way up here, they took a small part of a forest near Lemon Pershi. And that's all they've taken over 48 hours. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians, of course, have continued to push in Bakhmut, but we'll be getting to that part in a minute. Starting off with our first clip, though, we did see some Russian equipment being destroyed by the 63rd Brigade near Dubrova. And so, here is that clip. Oh man, I'm telling you.
Makes you want to break out a, what's his name? That guy that does the Ford commercial voice.
Makes you want to break out a Sam Elliott. Have you ever sat
there? You go.
Have you ever sat there and seen a BMP get hit by an RPG? Well, watch this as we ram one right into the front of it. Look at that thing smoking. It's smoking better than a chain smoker. Watch as it goes over into the tree line. Oh man, let me tell you, you wouldn't find any smoking better than this if you were to go out there to Cuba yourself and roll your own cigars. Check this out as we ram another drone into another tank. Watch it get blown up like a nuclear bomb. It didn't blow up like a nuclear bomb, but watch this clip. I'm hoping that it happens in this one. And there goes the drone right into the BMP, and oh man, would you look at that. That thing's going to be blowing sky high. Oh man. Impressive. Watch this artillery land all nearby, and watch that thing finally go nuclear. Man, look at that thing burn. It's burning worse than the hole in my heart. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I'm a romantic. I almost turned to Roddy Dangerfield right there.
Oh, man, I'm telling you.
Oh, man, would you? oh, man, I'm telling you. But watch that MTLB or whatever the hell it is burning down there. Look at that. Oh, man, watch that thing blow up and go sky high with the crew inside as well. Oh, man. I'm shivering in my timbers. Someone just said they were going to report our channel. Oh, man, I'm shivering. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh, man. When you see the tank right there burning up. Wait a minute, what kind of tank was that? Hang on, I got to go back and look at this one again. That's a BTR-80. That is not a T-72 or a T-80. That kind of looks like a T-55. I can't tell, though, for certain, so I'm not going to say definitively on that one. But maybe it's a T-55. It looks a little bit like it. But with that, I see in that clip right there, and very nice to see that you're able to destroy some Russian equipment in that area. Moving on down into the Seversk region, we also saw Estrella scoring a hit right around here. You see the cameraman hopping off the Estrella as it appears that the Estrella is pulling up its missiles and preparing to fire. We see the Estrella still lining up its missile, now firing. And there goes the missile. And let's see if it gets a hit.
Did you see did you see like the firing head like jump around right before it fired?
Yeah, man, that thing went like it went crazy.
Dang, they went crazier.
Yeah, they got it. I think they got it. But let's watch that thing have a like a spasm there. Man, that thing was doing some little micro adjustments. And right up there, and where's in the world's the explosion? I think it's over here. Yeah, there. Dude, it's always great to hear folks that are really happy to hit their targets. You know, like someone said, Matthew, years ago when we were in school, man, there is nothing like hitting a target. And so that we're now going to be moving on from that Strela 10 being knocked out, and we're now going to be moving down into the area of Bakhmut. And so, over the past 48 hours, what has been happening down here? Well, a lot. Notice, advances. Now, Deep State UA is showing that the Ukrainians are in Klishkivka. Very nice. We have, of course, shown on our map that they took Klishkivka days ago because live UA shows that. But still, this is great news. And starting off with our first clip up near Blahodatne, we saw that the 72nd was able to destroy some Russian forces up in this area. Check it out. Oh, man, that sounded so nice. But here's the 72nd Brigade. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. You know, I just had a realization. 72nd Brigade is all the way down here. So we're going to move that down there because I just realized that's not where the 72nd Brigade is. I don't know why in the world I put that near Blahodatne, but they're down around Volodar right now. Moving on behind the city of Bakhmut, we saw the Russians being hit by an artillery shell back here. Oh, you see the Scooby-Doo van rolling past another one that appears to have been knocked out in the street.
Запись. Француз огонь. Француз огонь, погонь.
Француз пост. Блядь, увага.
Блядь.
Блядь, вы потухлые мужики.
Не-не-не, мы смотрим.
And oh!
Dang!
Like Zoink Scoob, they just hit our grid coordinates. Raggy 300.
That guy's laughing sound like an actual chicken back there.
Wait, let's hear that again. All right. We're not gonna say anything. We're just gonna let the audio be heard. Man, man, I gotta tell you, that laugh will make everybody laugh. Let's listen to that one more time. Oh,
man,
my
that's crazy.
Lord.
That is so accurate. That guy could do like voiceovers, like for like chicken sound effects.
Oh my God, dude! You sit there and you pull out the corn basket and you shake the seeds around in it for a second, and you hear. Wait, no, you hear this. That I gotta say, that's a great laugh though. That's wonderful because honestly, mine's a lot worse than that. But still, I gotta say, it is great to hear these guys are over the moon whenever they take out the Russians. Because, of course, some of y'all know that there are some people out there who act like you must cry when you see the Russians getting schmacked. The reason why is because it's largely, like, the best way I can explain it is that it's people trying to virtue signal on the internet who aren't actually involved in the war and don't understand the atrocities or something that the Russians are committing, or they're just doing it for the heckin' chonker upvotes to look good so they can get the little up dudes. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger, all that crap. And so they do that stuff so that way they I guess, look good and signal virtue. Well, virtue signal. But the thing to me is that you can hear, and this is the greatest proof, and this is why we always joke on this channel and keep it really light, is because the Ukrainian soldiers who are actually fighting this war, and the guys who actually just called in this artillery strike, that is the reason why everything happened on film that we're watching right now, they are busting out laughing at this, because they are happy to be doing their job. Knocking out these Russians here behind Bakhmut saves Ukrainian lives on the battlefield. It saves Ukrainian lives behind the lines. It shortens this war down by seconds, by minutes, every single time. And that is why I'm always a big fan of hyping up whenever the Russians get knocked out, hyping out whenever they get destroyed, because it is something that the Ukrainians are happy about themselves, and it's helping to end this war. And you can hear that right here with these laughs.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, man. But I gotta say, I feel the same thing as them. That was amazing and a wonderful shot right there for sure, considering that they pretty much called that in on a moving vehicle and they still hit it. Moving on from that, we're now going to be moving a little bit behind the lines to a promotional video that was made by the Kraken unit. And so, here is the clip. I'm going to be muting it because it does use copyrighted music. But take a look at the Kraken's promotional videos. This stuff is impressive. Man, they're walking through fire. They're driving Humvees, showing you some fighting footage, setting up some mines, trench fights, firing artillery. I mean, this looks like what you would think the army would be. I mean, I gotta say, they made a really good promotional video right there. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that interesting little clip from the Kraken, which is fighting in that area right now. And we're now going to be moving on down into the area of Klishkiivka, where we saw some footage from the 80th Airborne that has been in this area for a long time, fighting in the Bakhmut region. And we're going to be muting that because of copyrighted music. We can see them riding in an armored car, walking through the fields, shaking hands, making friends, driving a BMP, walking through the woods on a fine summer's eve, holding their AKs in really cool ways, walking into more woods, throwing grenades into dugouts, a perfect hole-in-one. We can see it exploding. See this guy firing his AK, I believe. That looked like an AK-12. Those are fairly rare. We can see another guy moving up through the smoke to a dugout. We can see another guy watching that BMP keep driving by, riding in the back of an armored car, walking down a path, flying down a path, finding Russians, maybe even dropping a nade on those Russians. I don't know. Maybe they feel good. Oh, there they go. Oh, no. Oh, unfortunate. And we can now see them in the forest again. See them lobbing even more nades. We can see them standing. We can see them walking. We can see them taking surrendering Russians. We can see them laying on the ground. Now we can see them walking over a berm again. And then the video ends pretty much where it began, really. But very interesting clips to show what the 80th Airborne Brigade has been doing in the vicinity of Bakhmut. And moving on down here, we also saw the 3rd Brigade fighting in the rain. It's kind of like singing in the rain, but even better because they are fighting in the rain. Check this out.
Battlefield 3. Польша на клубнике, нахуй. Есть один калашик уже. Не бачу. О, все. Давай. А ну, царь. Автоматик подай, пожалуйста.
Не, автоматик, блядь, трофей.
Ну-то.
Шо?
Подпишу я сейчас его. Все, говоришь, что почистили.
It appears that they're just talking right now. We're not really seeing a lot of combat action.
Надо еще тут проверить.
We see him pointing out something over there in the brush. And now they're starting to advance as the video is cut forward in time.
We can see him looking into the dugouts of the Russian forces.
I saw the comment.
I did. I read the live chat occasionally. The Ukrainians are beginning to look through the trees for the Russians. The Russians prefer to hide in these situations, hoping that the Ukrainians pass them by. The Ukrainians, with spider-like senses, look through every dugout and every hole in the ground, looking for potential Russians to feed upon. Remnants of the Russian forces, such as a MRE, can be seen littering the ground.
Все четко, все живы-здоровы. Привет, передавай.
Now the Ukrainians are resting inside of one of their burrows, making sure to be rested for the next hunt.
Убили 300 тысяч кацапов. 3 прихожина взяли в плен.
And now we are going to be stopping this video because it sounds as though Gladiator has now taken over the soundtrack. We're going to be moving on from that clip, but
Great to see some actions of the 3rd Brigade occurring in that area today. A little rainy, but they're still moving forward, and that's good to see. We're now going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area, of course, seeing that they have made it. Well, actually, let me show y'all. Once again, over the past 48 hours, they have visibly made advances according to Deep State UA. So here is the past 48 hours of advances right there. You can see that most of them are centralized around the Klishkivka area according to Deep State UA, but I would once again like to remind everyone that live UA map shows that Klishkivka has been taken by the Ukrainians around a week ago at this point and remains in Ukrainian hands up till this day. We're now going to be moving out of that area of the front line and down into the Donetsk region. And moving on down here, we can see some interesting things. Over the past 48 hours, absolutely nothing has changed. And so we're going to be now showing all the clips, starting off in Avdiivka, where we saw the Russians getting hit pretty hard. Oh, we're going to be muting that. When you see the Russians...
It sounded like the Angry Birds music or something coming on.
It kind of did, didn't it? And we now see the drone flying right on into where the Russians are, and boom goes the dynamite, or as they say, boom shakalaka. It appears that they just got hit. That's a nice, solid hit. And we now see some Russians in there, and it appears that they aren't happy, or they may be uncomfortable. We're now going to be moving on down to Marinka, where we also saw a net saved a crab. Believe it or not, it's the other way around. Usually nets kill crabs at sea when fishing vessels. Well, actually, they use crab cages, but we're going to make it nets for the purposes of this joke, because... You see, the nets, they usually kill crabs, although we all know that that's untrue, it's the cages. But nonetheless, this net actually saved a crab. Check it out. So what happened is that a Russian drone hit the net and it exploded on the net instead of the crab, and so the crab remains relatively undamaged, although it did set fire to the net, and now they're trying to deal with that problem.
Короче, въебав ланцет. Вон батарейки. Часть крила. И там ще зверху над сеткою.
Oh. Never mind, the crab did go up. The fire spread to the crab. That is unfortunate. Dude, get away, man. It's filled with ammo. Okay, now it appears that
he's like a southerner. When they see like a tornado coming straight for him, they'll stand right outside and never go down to the basement.
You know, that's the most accurate statement I've ever heard. And
yes,
you know something else, Matthew, is that it's crazy. This fire spread from the net and into the crab. And that shows how dangerous fire is to any kind of armored vehicle, even the SPGs, is that a fire near to them can eventually spread inside of them and then cause the vehicle to be completely unusable. So while the net did initially save the crab, it didn't save the crab from the net fire. That's also quite unfortunate, because if they were able to possibly rev up the engine and move this thing out from under the net, maybe they could have saved the crab, but that may have not been possible in this situation. Still, with that, we're going to be going back to him watching the gates of hell open up from inside of the crab. Yikes. But luckily everyone's okay. Luckily no one was hurt. Just the crab was lost. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of that part of Donetsk and on into the southern front around Volodar, where our first clip shows the 72nd Brigade destroying Russian forces. This was a clip that was priorly located in Bakhmut. We moved down here after seeing that it was the 72nd. So we can once again hear the lo-fi hip-hop beats, keeping everyone working really hard in the cafes at night, making sure to pump out those midterms and finals. And we can now see the drone flying over a destroyed building. And it appears there are Russians here. We can now see them dropping the first bullet and hitting their first Ural. Man, that Ural be smoking.
I'm telling you.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. It's like a gas fire down there. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And we now see an explosion on the right side of the screen, and then a drone watching something else on the left side. Now we can just see the massive explosion of whatever that is. I don't know if it is that Ural or something else, but something has blown up tremendously. And we can see the smoke rising from the area. And we can now see the smoke coming from the building. It looks like it is coming from that Ural. And it's raw light, showing us that there was most likely ammunition being carried in that Ural. So it's an ammo fire. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. But great to see the 72nd taking out a Ural. Moving on from that, we also saw a Russian peon turned into dust. They say it bit the dust. I say it got turned into dust. We see it right out there being turned into dust. There's the explosions of the ammo. And we see another explosion further over to the left.
Тоді один ми знищили, другий підбили, БК все підбив. 200-мм калібр. І він дуже багато шкоди може нанести, якщо він буде, попаде по цілі, по якій він стріляє. Це дуже така машина, серйозна.
Як зараз поводить себе противник за вашими спостереженнями? Останній місяць.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But another peon destroyed. And I gotta say, it's very nice. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that area of the front line and down towards Velika Novoselka. And also, to give you all a recap of the past 48 hours of fighting in this front line, we saw that over the past 48 hours, Ukrainian forces have made advances. Notably, they have made advances in the area of Robotne, according to Deep State UA, and they've also made an advance into Staromayorsk. A live UA map shows that the Ukrainians have in fact taken Mayorsk and are now fighting on a front line somewhere in between Orozhine and Zaitvana Bajania. We have not been able to see that on Deep State UA yet, so I think they're just trying to be cautious and update the map slowly, but we did see one video coming from Velika Novoselka today of a CV-90 moving around on the front lines in this area. If Reddit loads.
Come on, Reddit.
Dude, this is what it sounds like when I be calling up the doctor's office. That's the key.
That hold music.
And we can see a CV-90 driving by. Look at that thing. That thing is sweet. And apparently they're going to have a little chit-chat. Oh, hello there. That was really goofy sounding. I'm not even going to lie. And what in the world are they in? I don't know what these guys are driving around. It's not an M113. It's something else. It may be a VAB. And now we can see the CV-90 driving by, and that's the end of the video. But really cool to see that the Ukrainians have started to implement CV-90s across most, if not all, of the front lines. We're now going to be moving on into the direction of Huilopol, where we saw that the Ukrainians were also hitting Russian forces in this direction as well. Dude, when you go... Wait, hang on. When Malige gives me 1 day off from working the farm as a Lee poor a peasant.
What? I don't even understand what you said. But
hang
okay.
on. Let me do that one over again because I just butchered that one. When the Lord of the damn it, you know what? Medieval peasant shit. There you go. So That's the medieval peasant song right there, so now I gotta mute it. But we can see them dropping drone bomblets onto the trench, and they appear to be quite accurate. And Glog said, "Does anybody have heavy metal here?" I don't think so. Most people are made out of skin. But that's what I know. Anyways, well, you see them still dropping bomblets, and all of them are landing right inside the trenches. And I got to tell you this, Matthew. I am 100% getting sick. I'm sick right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's why I was messing up that joke kind of badly, is because I'm burning alive over here now, and it's bad. But anyways, we can see them still dropping the drone bomblets onto those Russian... Oh, yeah, well, that was a fairly effective one. That was quite effective, as a matter of fact. I think that may be to shreds, you say. But we can now see them dropping another bomblet onto another part of the trench, and it appears that was quite an accurate hit. Well, you see a Russian get flung out right there. Oh, brilliant! All the garbage around me and nothing can help, brilliant. We now see them lining up another drone bomblet. We see that one effectively hitting the trench as well. We now see them lining up another shot for another tree line, and it appears that they're going to be getting ready to make the shot. And there it goes. It appears to be an M67 frag grenade, maybe, and it lands in the trench, and it's a successful hit right on the very end of the T. We're watching another one being lined up here. They're dropping another M67. This one appears to have a little bit of a curve on it, and it lands right outside of the trench, exploding, unfortunately not hitting anyone. Very unfortunate. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get a respect around here. Moving on into the next clip, and you see them dropping another M67 frag grenade right inside the trench. A perfect shot, 10 out of 10, and look at that cornhole. Very successful. Another one, like DJ Khaled said. Matthew.
Another one.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. And we can see that one exploding right in between the trenches and causing some pretty serious damage. And someone said, sick again. No, I'm not sick again. Matthew was the one who was sick first.
Yeah, that was me.
And now I'm down with the sickness. And not with, like, the clubbing kind of down with the sickness. I'm just down with sickness. I think I'm getting sick. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that interesting little clip right there, the 68th Brigade blasting Russians in that part of the line. And we're now going to be moving towards Molotow-Shmaka, where we saw some Ukrainian Bradleys in service while I sit here and start to slur all of my words. Am I getting sick or having a stroke? I'm going to leave you all to find out. And so, here's the clip. Oh man, and they got that cool music playing as we look at all of these nice Bradleys. Man, they made this thing cinematic. Headlights, ammo, driving.
I like that multicolored ammo, too.
Man, that stuff be looking Gucci. And we can see it driving into the lines. Now we can see it in a completely desert color. We can see them looking out of the cupola. We can see them driving them around, backing them up into the trees. See them looking at the trenches. I mean, the treads, and waving a flag over their tank. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but great to see more Bradleys on the line. And guess what? There are even more Bradleys. If you thought there wasn't enough Bradley, here's another Bradley. And so, in this photo, the M2 Bradley, here pictured, is one that destroyed 2 Russian tanks. Soldiers of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade with the call signs Primara, Kerch, and Bublik on their Bradley IFV in the Zaporizhia Oblast. According to the subtitles on this picture, this Bradley IFV was initially surrounded by Russian infantry on 2 sides. The infantry were eliminated with its autocannon. This Ukrainian Bradley faced off against a pair of T-72s. Both Russian tanks were destroyed. The Bradley is equipped with the TOW, most likely TOW-2Bs, and anti-tank missiles, which the crew used. This story was reported by the Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Malyar. So a very impressive little battle record for this M2 Bradley right here. And once again showing why the Bradleys are the best of the best. They are one of the best IFBs out there. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think that's a great picture as well, showing off the crew. We're now going to be moving on out of that part of the front lines and towards Sherbaki, where we saw an ATGM destroying a tank. And Truster said, "You're always kind of sick." And I get to tell you, man, I'm kind of sick like Tony Hawk. I'm always out here shredding it. You know what I mean?
Oh, man. Get out of here.
В'їбали, зараз ти от.
And end any minute now.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Oh, yes.
Wait a minute. Juggernaut. Igor! It's so great to see another tank knocked out. Absolutely incredible. And the Ukrainians, of course, are inflicting some pretty heavy losses on the Russian forces and hopefully breaking down brigades and getting ready to move that line forward. Well, more so backwards, really. It would actually be going backwards down towards Melitopol and stuff. But for the Ukrainians, that is forwards. For the Russians, that's backwards. To our relative view on this map, this would actually be going backwards towards the bottom of the screen. Anyways, it is now time for us to move north for the winter. I'm just kidding. We're moving north for the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on the 510th day of the war. And so, without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Good health to you.
Speech. Track 2. Track 2. Dude, I feel like I'm calling out like those football plays like 3-3, orange 9. You know, like I feel like that whenever we're calling out the tracks now. But anyways, here you go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Звіт за цей день. Провів засідання Ставки. Основні питання – це захист наших портів, продовження продовольчого експорту морем. Це стратегічно важливе питання, та не лише для нашої держави. Торік, завдяки нашій Чорноморській зерновій ініціативі, вдалося запобігти ціновій кризі на глобальному продовольчому ринку. За ціновим вибухом неминуче би почались і політичні, і міграційні кризи, зокрема в африканських та азійських країнах. Очевидно, російське керівництво зараз таки намагається спровокувати ці кризи. Без нашого експорту дефіцит на глобальному ринку буде, на жаль, дуже відчутним і не лише для найбідніших країн. Різні країни відчують. Від Лівії і Єгипту до Бангладеш і Китаю. Ми працюємо з нашими партнерами, щоб запобігти цьому. Зі свого боку розробляємо варіанти дій, домовленостей для того, щоб зберегти українську глобальну роль гаранта продовольчої безпеки. І наші морські виходи на світовий ринок. І робочі місця для українців в портах та аграрній індустрії. Ми боремось і за світову безпеку, і за нашого українського фермера. До речі, напередодні зустрівся з представниками африканських ЗМІ, друкованих видань, радіо, телебачення, з Південно-Африканської Республіки, з Нігерії, Кенії, Уганди, Гани, Беніну, Кот-д'Івуару. Вони були не лише у Києві. Вони відвідали і Херсонщину, і Бучу, спілкувалися з рідними жертв цієї війни. Щоразу, коли журналісти з інших країн приїжджають в Україну та на власні очі бачать наслідки російської агресії, вони повертаються додому з правдою про цю війну. І ми говоримо з ними під час інтерв'ю не англійською чи французькою мовами, ні. Ми говоримо мовами правди. І це дуже допомагає нам тримати та збільшувати увагу світу до України, до нашої боротьби за свободу. Ми говорили з африканськими медійниками, зокрема і про ситуацію з зерновим експортом, російською агресією проти глобальної продовольчої стабільності. Я вдячний кожному і кожній в світових ЗМІ, хто чесно розповідає своїй аудиторії побачене в нашому регіоні, в нашій країні. Звичайно, на ставці були доповіді військових, розвідки, Служби безпеки, МВС. Питання зрозумілі. Ситуація на передовій, усі гарячі напрямки від Куп'янського до Херсонщини, Донецька область, південні райони Запорізької області. Розглянули питання щодо постачання боєприпасів і захисту від російських ракетних та дронових ударів. Я хочу подякувати нашим повітряним силам та усім захисникам, захисницям неба з інших видів і родів військ. Дякую за кожну збиту російську ракету, за кожен збитий шахет, за врятовані життя наших людей, інфраструктуру, зокрема в Одесі та області. Особливо вдячний 160-й Одеській та 208-й Херсонській зенітним ракетним бригадам, 302-му зенітному ракетному Харківському полку і воїнам 14-ї радіотехнічної бригади імені Богдана Хмельницького за своєчасне виявлення цілей. Дякую. А кожен факт використання компонентів з країн вільного світу для виробництва зброї російських терористів, зокрема ракет і шахедів, кожен такий факт буде нашим аргументом, що наявних санкцій, тиску проти Росії недостатньо. Світ повинен настільки обмежити торговельні відносини з державою-терористом, щоб жодного компоненту із вільного світу не можна було використати для терору. Я провів сьогодні важливу нараду щодо духовної незалежності України, наших подальших кроків для захисту прав і законних інтересів громадян України у сфері релігійних відносин. Невдовзі будуть новини. Продовжуємо роботу і над підготовкою доктрини України, над нашою повоєнною трансформацією та вже сьогоднішніми рішеннями заради допомоги нашим людям. Міністр охорони здоров'я та міністр соціальної політики представили мені концепцію створення мережі реабілітаційних центрів в Україні. Різний рівень і функціонал, але абсолютно необхідні послуги реабілітації. Вже почалась реалізація. Міністри представлять ці деталі. Зустрівся із керівником Японського агентства міжнародного співробітництва. Це одна із найбільших в світі інституцій підтримки економічного та соціального розвитку. Її робота схожа із роботою, приміром, американської USAID, яку в Україні вже знають. Японське агентство зараз реалізує програму екстреного відновлення в Україні, а обсяг програми – $500 мільярда. А загалом за час від початку повномасштабної агресії це японське агентство вже надало Україні підтримки на понад $1 мільярд. І у нас є потенціал для збільшення співпраці. Саме про це говорили: розмінування, енергетика, проекти в інфраструктурі, освіта. Дуже важливо будівництво реабілітаційних центрів для подолання наслідків війни. Ще одне. Підписав укази про нагородження наших воїнів. 7 указів, загалом 1255 воїнів. Бойові бригади та підрозділи. Різні ділянки фронту. Однакова найвища хоробрість. Із 24 лютого державними нагородами відзначені майже 51 тисяча українських воїнів. Я дякую усім, хто бореться заради України. Слава усім нашим героям, кожному і кожній, хто воює заради України, хто тренує наших воїнів, хто лікує і відновлює після поранень. Я дякую всім в світі, хто допомагає. Я дякую усім партнерам за сьогоднішній Рамштайн, особливо міністру оборони США Остіну за дуже чіткі, недвозначні і потужні заяви. Подолати російську агресію, покарати Росію за терор – це історичне завдання сучасного покоління лідерів світу. І світ виконає це завдання. Перемога України буде. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava. And Slava Ukraini. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that is the beginning of the live chat again. The live chat has been going very fast tonight. I have to say, Matthew, it has been going so fast, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it, but nonetheless, that chat has been coming up with some very interesting things to ask questions about. And a lot of people have been having some discussions in there about some very interesting stuff. And I've seen that you've made some questions about that and allowed people to vote on it. And of course, votes around here are more honest and more fair than Russian elections. That doesn't really say much, but it does allow y'all to get y'all's opinions out there. And so with that, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we have our first poll to address, which says many large convoys of Wagner are confirmed moving into Belarus today, and is it the end for Wagner? It looks like 37% said no, Wagner will stay hostile, 34% said it's too early to tell, 19% said yes, Wagner will go quiet now, and 9% said unsure. And it seems to me that it might be a little too early to tell, but we have seen that a lot of the Wagner that were left inside of Russia have now made their way into Belarus. We saw several large convoys, about 6 or 7 of them, leaving Russia and heading into Belarus, supposedly to their camps that they've been built. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's probably too early to call, like you said. It's kind of like it's kind of just like a preliminary phase. We don't really know if they're going back into combat activities in Ukraine in the future. That's what they said, at least. And so I would have to say it's a little too early to call. We'll have to wait and see what is happening to them. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second one says, after receiving backlash, Russia says it would rejoin grain deal if demands are met. And what are your thoughts? 57% said Russia is worried about Turkey, 19% said Russia was bluffing the entire time, 14% said Russia is worried about the West, and 9% said unsure. And to me, it sounds like Russia is worried about not just Turkey, but also the West as well. They've received a lot of backlash for backing out of that grain deal, which is actually, to my surprise, to an extent. And they've pretty much gotten backlash from all around the globe, except for their most staunch allies. So I think they're worried that Turkey might stand up and cause an issue about it if Russia does interfere with those grain shipments, and that they are backing down and they are basically having their bluff called on them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think they may actually be scared of Turkish naval intervention in the situation. That may be what's leading them to, once again, restarting the grain deal again, or at least starting negotiations to begin the grain deal fairly soon. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our last one says, a U.S. soldier defected to North Korea today to avoid discipline, and what are your thoughts? 70% said he is worse off in North Korea. 17% said he'll be in good hands in North Korea. I assume those people were being sarcastic. And 10% said, well, he has thought it was better, and 3% said unsure. And certainly he is worse off in North Korea than he would have ever been at any disciplinary proceeding that the military would have had. And he made a very stupid choice. And supposedly he laughed out loud as he was running across the border. So either he's a crazy nut or he was mocking folks. But little does he know, he's going to be the one that's going to end up suffering. But Enforcer, what say you?
Let's see here. What would I say about that? Let me think. I guess you could say that his ham hung.
Man, what?
Dude, they're so hungry in North Korea, they call a town a ham hung. But anyways, I would say probably not a smart move on his end, because if he ever is returned back to America, he's going to be in very serious trouble. Now, if he was in serious trouble before, now he's committed treason pretty much against the United States. So that's a lot more serious than whatever he was being charged with before. But another thing is that the North Koreans, interestingly enough, Matthew, actually treat defectors very well historically. There has only been 5 U.S. soldiers that have defected to North Korea, and we've been able to keep track of a lot of them. Some of them are still alive to this day, and they actually get treated really well by the North Koreans because they're used as a propaganda symbol by North Korea to go, oh, look, we treat Americans that defect to our side so well because they understand the true way of Juche, and everyone else should do that as well. But I don't know.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you call good treatment, because I'm sure they get good treatment in public, but I'd imagine in private, they probably cannot even walk down the street because the North Koreans hate Americans so bad.
Maybe. I mean, that may be the case. But then again, at the same time, if a North Korean attacks them and they were a propaganda symbol, I have a feeling that person would be going to a labor camp if they tried to attack them. I mean, like, it may honestly be the case that they are treated well in all seriousness for propaganda reasons. But this situation does seem to be a little different, because this guy isn't defecting like the other ones did because they actually got disillusioned and thought North Korea may be better. This guy is defecting to escape punishment. So I don't know how in the world the North Koreans will view that. Maybe they'll view that the same as they have all of the other guys. But there's a little bit, I mean, it's a half and half thing. Either they'll treat them like the rest of them, or they'll torture this guy and he'll come out as a warm briar. But who knows? It's a very interesting development, though, nonetheless, because I think the last time this happened was decades ago. And also, Matthew, whenever you get done hanging out in Pyongyang and you want to go hang out with the boys, you go hang out in Pyongyang. You know what I mean?
There's really a place called Pyongyang?
Yeah, look right here. Pyongyang.
Oh, what in the world?
This is where Kim Jong-un goes to hang out with the boys. Pyongyang. Wait, what the hell? People's first car wash of the Workers' Party.
Now that's a little bit fancy for a car wash, isn't it?
I don't see a car wash there. That's the problem, though. You know what I see?
Do they even have cars?
Yeah, they have like a few, I think. It's not really a large amount of them. But look, there's a Holiday Inn, not really well kept. There's a small Khrushchevka block, not really well kept. Not seeing the people's first car wash of the Workers' Party, however. Not seeing that. So the kind of doubting that they have one there. What's the train station look like? Oh, no pictures. It's weird. It's almost like no one in North Korea has access to modern technology. I wonder why. Wait, hang on. I gotta look around here for a minute. Local government office. That looks like a small nuclear silo with like a little fence around it and the small cleared out area. That looks like a nuclear silo. But yeah, I'm not really getting You know, I'm gonna have to be honest with you, man. Let me break this down here to words that folks can understand. I'm not really getting wholesome chungers poggers vibes off of this thing. I'm not really getting that right here. This is a very very sussy baka place. And of course, I'm just kidding. All that stuff's stupid. But anyways, yeah, North Korea is a trip, and I have a feeling that this guy is going to start finding that out once he gets transported back into the 1950s. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, we are fresh out of polls once again, yet again, like I always like to say. So we're moving on to our super chat questions yet again, and up first, we have a very generous $50 super chat from Flash1, another channel legend, and thank you very much, Flash, for that support and helping to keep us running. And he says, hello there, and keep up the good work. LSA, Slava Ukraine, and please take a question from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Flash. And thank you for enjoying our work. I'm so happy to know that people do enjoy our work because we put everything we can into it. We put our heart, soul, health, we put everything into this thing. And I gotta thank you so much for appreciating it and the efforts we go through to make sure that this is not just good news, but it's also actually worthwhile watching. There are some people out there who do news. There are honestly, like being completely honest, there are some people on YouTube that don't need to be on YouTube. It's like they don't have any delivery style or anything. I mean, you know, a rock could do better than some people out there. And I'm glad to know that a lot of people enjoy what we do because we try our best to actually make this interesting and entertaining and not just the news itself, because anyone can do that. It takes a little bit extra to actually make it worthwhile to watch. And so thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you for enjoying what we do and helping us to keep it going. And we will make sure to get a question from the chat. But before we do that, what fund is that going to, Matthew?
I say put it toward the pizza fund because we once again helped drain that today, so it would be a good use there.
I would agree. I concur. The pizza fund it is. And so with that, let's take the live chat.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Thomas LSA, who says, when are the M1 Abrams due to be delivered in Ukraine?
The M1 Abrams delivered to Ukraine, I believe that's supposed to be happening here soon, maybe in a month's time from what I understand. By August? That's what I'm understanding, but I'm not really sure, so we'll have to see, but from what I understand, it will be August. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. Thank you so much once again, Flash1, for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Hal Rose, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Hal, for that support. Excuse me, that cough, I've been able to stifle it most of the night, but right now I'm starting to have trouble stifling it. But thank you very much, Hal, for that support. And he says, and challenging viewers who accuse you of clickbaiting is easy. Ask them how many clickbait channels have raised 1 million plus for Ukraine relief, and then tell them your subscribers support you, not ads.
And thank you so much for the support, Hal, as Matthew coughs his guts out over there. And I gotta say, let me pull out my tiny violin here, the world's smallest violin. I'm not feeling well right now. Or whatever the violin sounds like. Anyway, that was a terrible violin, by the way. That one I would demand a refund for. But thank you so much for the support, Hal Rose. And, you know, one thing I've learned, and one thing I don't really focus on a lot anymore, is really caring what haters say, because it's a pretty good point. How in the world does a channel that clickbaits, you know, how in the world does it raise $1 million? Because if we clickbaited, I would assume we would have no viewer trust at all. And so, you know, no one would support our fundraisers, yet people do. We have the biggest fundraisers on YouTube on a weekly basis. That's one thing I can guarantee. There may be fundraisers, and I know they're not the biggest fundraisers on YouTube, period. They're just the biggest ones weekly. Because there are massive YouTubers, like, for example, Markiplier, that come around and they'll run a fundraiser, and they'll attach to a video or something, and it gets up to, like, 100,000 on that one fundraiser, and that's way bigger than any single one of our fundraisers have been. But over the course of every week, nobody, no channel, no community gets that close to helping out anything that well, and that's one thing that I know for certain. But then again, as you may know, Hal Rose, if you've been in the trenches of Twitter like Mace or Jesus has been, or any of them, you will know that there have been people out there who have spread some of the most slanderous lies about things that this channel does, and acts like they're exposing us for something. Like for some reason, some people act like they're exposing us by saying that super chats go to support this channel, like we don't say that after every single super chat, to make that clear. And then some other people say that the fundraisers are scams, which is that is probably one of the most infuriating things I've ever heard, to be completely honest with you, because we put in effort and a lot of time into setting up fundraisers and hyping them up and keeping those things running consistently, because it's really ridiculous. And on top of that, if people were looking at it from a monetary standpoint, because for some reason that's how this whole entire thing is being spun right now, it's like I work on that day something like 8 to 9 hours on the stream alone on Sundays, and neither of us even get paid to do that. We do that for free because we care about Ukraine and we want to help them out, and the best way to do that is just keep running fundraisers. And then someone wants to go and say, oh, it's a scam. And it's like, that is the most aggravating thing ever. And that's the one thing. It's like, yeah, it's really easy to shoot off to haters. It's like, well, we've raised $1 million. No one else has done that. But then they sit there and then they just want, oh yeah, well, the fundraisers aren't even real. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with people? And especially the one person that propagates that the most, because they run fundraisers through the exact same YouTube Gives system. So they know exactly how it runs. But then they sit there and they want to say crap that is a complete lie about our fundraisers. But that's fine. All I say is if they want to come down to Alabama, by all means, please do. I'm trying to, honestly, they've said that to us over email, and they've also said that to their community. I'm honestly wanting them to come down to Alabama at this point, because you're going to say stuff like that. Don't puss out. You got to back that up. But anyways,
man, at this point, we've been threatened by everybody that they're going to come down here and do something. Like literally everyone.
Yeah, literally everybody. I don't mean to complain to y'all, because we try and keep this behind the scenes, and I'm not like them where I go running in front of my audience and cry every single time something happens. But this guy has pissed us off for the last time. We dropped it. And we are largely, the ball's in our court to drop this thing or not. It's not in the court of the offender. You can't murder someone and go, you know what, I murdered them, but I'm going to let everyone drop it. That's not how anything works. You sit there and you lie about someone and call their stuff scams. You don't get away with that. You can't just sit there and go, you know what, I'm going to drop that. Just move on. We're going to get them now. I'm going to make that clear to everybody, because I know he's going to be crying about this clip and show it, so clip it. But we are going to be getting him. There's no doubt about that at this point, and we are working behind the scenes to get him a little bit extra, considering the crap he's been wanting to say, and have some of his friends who apparently have been arrested to go around and also say as well. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Hal, and supporting us against the haters, because folks like you who support us, you not only help me to do what we've always wanted to do, well, what I've always wanted to do, you also help us to spite those people by keeping us on air and keeping this thing rolling. You help us to keep this thing free of really any restrictions or regulations that could be put on by anybody. As a matter of fact, we are able to do whatever we want to do. We are able to cover the news how we want to cover it, and as long as y'all support us and back us up, that's entirely possible. And I got to thank you so much, Hal Rose, for backing us up and supporting this channel, because that's what keeps us rolling. And also, I see some people saying, who are we talking about? That's one thing that
we will not name them, because we're not going to give them any respect whatsoever of even calling out their name. And by the way, this guy right here that we're talking about that continues to harass us, he brought our name up again yesterday, or the other day actually, just out of the blue, and started saying he was going to do stuff to us once again. And then out of the blue, he sends me an email and calls me every name under the sun and starts harassing me nonstop in the emails. And then he wants to whine about it. So, typical BS.
And also, someone says, can we please drop this? I mean, we would love to. We did, actually. This person sat there and got on their Discord server, and someone sent this to us, and they said, I'm just going to drop it. I'm going to give up, because I don't have the ability to pursue this legally or anything, so I'm just going to give up. And we went, oh, well, if he doesn't mention our names again, of course, there's an active lawsuit against him that we have. It's like, we'll just drop it. We'll forget about it, because it's no big deal, and anyways, he's dodging service and everything. So he sits there, and 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks go by, and then we start going viral every day of the week, and this is something we always know. Whenever we go viral, he starts a bashing attack again. So he's over there in Ukraine, and he just starts bashing us again, out of the blue. We hadn't even said anything about him for 3 weeks.
Starts attacking the hell out of us again on his video.
Yeah, so Matthew left a comment below his video. That's still there if you ever find this guy's channel. It's still there, and you can see it. And then he wants to come into the email, Matthew's email, and lie and say that he deleted the comment, which you can physically still see there, and start saying a whole bunch of crap about you know, just pretty much just harassing us and berating us. And so then Matthew goes on the offensive and starts responding to this guy the way he deserves to be responded to for months at this point, and then he wants to claim he's being harassed and whine about it. It's like you can't sit there and initiate crap again the way this guy has been doing it, and then sit there and claim harassment. That's just stupid. And I see, you know, some people in the live chat, you both won't shut up about it. Well, we do shut up. That's the thing. We do shut up. And then this guy wants to start it again. And then everyone acts like we're supposed to just brush it under the rug, that this guy just calls us a scammer and everything every single day. I mean, this guy is out there trying to destroy our reputation. I've worked 60 hours a week. I don't work 60 hours a week to have my reputation destroyed by some crackhead from Minnesota. I don't do that. I sit here and I work to support Ukraine, and that has been the entire goal of this channel the entire time. If you saw everything behind the scenes, this guy sat there and inserted himself into something that wasn't even his problem. We were talking to a whole other YouTube channel, and then he wants to hop in and act like he's personally offended. We try and reach out to him and say, hey, dude, it's not about you, and then he still wanted to act like it was about him. The guy is just nuts, and we keep on trying to drop it and keep on trying to move on. We've done that like 8 times, and this guy just keeps bringing it up, and that's what people like Hal Rose are mostly likely talking about, is that right there. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Hal Rose, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jay Bagwell. And thank you very much, Jay, for that support. And he says, all joking aside, thank you for your professionalism. And this channel means a lot to a lot of people, and we watch you because we've grown to trust you, and that says a lot. And thank you very much, Trister.
And thank you so much.
Jay Bagwell. I'm sitting over here trying to stifle a call from getting all confused. Thank you very much, Jay, for that support and also the kind words.
And thank you so much for the support as well, Jay, in helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because folks like you have truly been with this channel forever. Because it was in March, I think, of last year. It was like March or April of last year when this channel just started covering the war, and the war had just begun, that I actually met you and your whole family in person. And y'all are actually, I believe, the only fans, rather than people I actually knew and some of their friends, that I've met in person. And that has always been super cool to me. And we've had some incredibly cool times off screen, Matthew, me, and y'all have. And I've got to thank you so much once again for the support, counting on this channel, believing in this channel, and supporting us to help this thing to keep on rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, because folks like you help us to keep this thing rolling. And if it wasn't for folks like you, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Isa. I think it's Issy So, I think. Hopefully I'm not butchering that. It's a very unusual name. But thank you very much for the support. And he said, hello from Sweden. And what do you know about surströmming?
What? How's that spelled?
I'll have to put in the live chat because I'm not really sure how to. I'm just going to actually put it there. There you go.
And let's see here. And I'm waiting for... There we go. And let me let the live chat move a little bit, because there we go. I knew it was going to pop up there for a minute. Come on, let me copy. All right, copy. And let me go type that into Google, and let's see what we get. Because I think I know a little bit about it. Oh, it's that thing. Ew, it's the fermented herring. No, I know a little bit about this. I've heard about it before. Oh my God, that looks so nasty. Yeah, I know that. Oh man. That's like live fish. You know, that's like the similar category to live fish right there in that can. And I got to thank you so much for the support, and also being an Elite Spring Army member from Sweden. But also, I would have to be honest with you, I've never tried this stuff. I would assume that it doesn't taste good. Like, off the bat, that's what I would think, first impression, just seeing this thing every time I've ever seen it. Maybe it's good. I mean, like, it has to be around for a reason. Someone out there has to like this. But it doesn't look appetizing to me. This looks pretty rough. So I don't know much about it. I haven't actually eaten it. I've just seen it before. And I've never really been a big fan of its looks. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to keep the lights on and everything else. But I would have to be honest with you, surströmming, I just don't think I could do that one. Like, I would be honest, I don't think I could. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemer. And thank you very much, Marion, for that support while I grab a bot while I'm reading off your super chat. And sadly, there is no comment to address, so Marion, that bot being taken out will be in honor of your super chat. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Marion, because folks like you have helped this channel to keep on running for a very long time. And if it wasn't for folks like you, Marion, this channel wouldn't be able to keep on rolling. We wouldn't be able to keep the lights on. It's folks like you who support this channel and help us to keep this thing rolling. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here every single night. I wouldn't be able to do this as a job. And y'all have helped me to do something that was only in my wildest dreams a long time ago. Back when this channel first ever ran its first video in history, which was on September 5th of 2021, it was about the fall of Afghanistan. And I failed. I bombed on that video. It only got 120 views. And it was really bad. It just didn't get any views. And that was what I was wanting to do on YouTube all the way back then. And then it turned into a gaming channel, which is where it got the Enforcer name. And now it's what it is today. And it's actually what I wanted to do when I got on YouTube. And I got to thank you so much, Marion, and folks like you for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on rolling. Because y'all have made it possible for me to run the YouTube channel I originally wanted to run a long time ago. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to the game Schizo. And they put in a $20 donation. And I also put in a few coughs of my own, but thank you very much to the game Schizo for that support, and excuse me for the cough. It's really flaring up on me. I gotta go take some medicine after the stream's over. But the game Schizo says the fact that Russia has such disrespect for the South African delegation shows how doomed BRICS actually is. And Slav Ukraine.
And Slav Ukraine. And thank you so much to the Schizo Gamer for the support as well. And I would have to say, there's something that shows that BRICS is falling apart far better than that, and that's that the Indians started to deploy sharpened aluminum poles to the Kashmir area to deal with Chinese border guards, because the Indians and the Chinese, which are both a member of BRICS, are fighting for control over the Kashmir province in India right now, as well as the Pakistanis. And so that, to me, shows that BRICS is not as strong as people think it is, because do y'all see anywhere, like for example in Europe, in the European Union, where the French and the Germans are facing down over the border with actual arms and weapons over some kind of a dispute? You don't see that in Western alliances. You see that in BRICS, though, and that shows how weak they are. In fact, I don't even know what the hell Brazil is doing as a member of BRICS. You know, because they're just out there. They don't really have a lot of major dealings with the other BRICS members. They're just kind of like an honorary member of the whole thing, and they don't really do much beyond that from what I can tell. So BRICS is a really stupid alliance, to be honest, in my opinion. And it's one of the loosest and just ill-defined alliances anywhere in the world, even as an economic one. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from the Lorelei 18, and thank you very much for that support. And he said, no question, but it is my birthday, and also happy birthday to you, by the way. And they said, I've always been taught, get a gift and give a gift. And I just want to say, I enjoy the hell out of you guys every night, and keep up the great work, and take a live chat question.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. Happy birthday, by the way, and bless you. And I would have to say, thank you so much for the kind words. It means a lot to us, and it's easy when people say great positive things a lot to always take it for granted. But I always remember, whenever I hear kind words, I always remember way long ago when this channel first blew up on day 4 of the war, how I felt when all of the positive comments came through for the first time, and it felt like things had just changed. It was the craziest feeling ever. And I've got to thank you so much for the kind words as well, and having watched this channel for so long and found so much joy in it, because we always try and make this channel as interesting as possible, as informational as possible, and as entertaining as possible all at the same time. We try and blend those together as best we can. Sometimes, I will admit, we do fall short. Sometimes the jokes just land flat or something like that. There was one tonight where I was like, I bombed that joke. But nonetheless, I thank you so much for the kind words, and I thank you so much for being here tonight on your birthday. I hope this is our present to you as this live stream tonight, and thank you so much for helping us to keep this channel rolling and running for your support, because your support helps to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Cindy Mitchell, and thank you very much, Cindy, for that support. And she said Tuck just left, and we did 4 time zones in travel, and LSA for Roman.
And thank you so much for the support. And we have heard some mentions that Roman has been injured. I haven't really been carrying, focusing on that story a great deal, but that's very unfortunate because we have shown some of Roman's videos on this channel before, and hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's not that bad off, but I'll have to go and look into his situation here in a bit after the stream. But I've got to thank you so much once again, Cindy Mitchell and Tucker, for being here tonight with us and helping this channel to keep on running, because the Lee Spring Army is always behind every armed soldier of Ukraine and what they are doing over there. And hopefully Roman is able to recover perfectly fine and either be discharged from service largely the same as he entered, or maybe even go back to the front if it's his wish. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for Tucker being here tonight as well. He's one of the youngest members of the Lee Spring Army, and thank you so much once again to both of y'all for helping this channel to keep on running and enjoying this channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Vector. And also, Vector, by the way, sent me a message earlier. It was, I believe, about 2 weeks ago, showing me what his work was, and I'm very impressed by it. So it's good to see you, Vector, and thank you very much for the support. And he says, in Kyiv and working on the Vector art project involving 30 Ukrainian artists. It launches this fall in 2023, and my first night of Air Sirens, and don't ever doubt why we help these innocent democratic people. Slava Ukraine and the LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Vector. I hope this art project we can show on stream at some point, because I always am a huge fan of artwork that folks make. It's always impressive, and it always blows me away, because having been a person who drew a lot when I was younger, and Matthew could tell you, my drawings actually got really, really good by the time I was in high school. I was getting really good at it, but then it kind of just dropped off because I didn't have time for that any point beyond that. I've always been a huge person to be impressed by art, and I hope that we can show that on stream at some point, because it's going to most likely be amazing work. And I gotta thank you so much once again, Vector, for being one of those neat parts of the Lee Spring Army that adds a lot of character to it, because there are so many different kinds of people that are a part of the Lee Spring Army. There's folks like you who are artists. There are rocket scientists, aerospace engineers, pilots, race car drivers. Hell, there are people that we've heard have been on this stream that are a part of the government, part of the Ukrainian government. We've never actually physically seen them in the live chat before, but it's been rumored they've watched our streams before. And we are so honored to have so many different people as a part of the Enforcer channel and the Lee Spring Army. And I gotta thank you so much for being one of those people and sharing with us some really cool creative work that you may be finishing out here, and hopefully we'll be able to show that soon. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Trister1, and thank you very much, Trister, as always, for that support. And he says, half pizza fund and half to the Corgi Chewy fund. And that's a new one, the Corgi Chewy Fund. They'll love that one.
Man, that's just raw FB for them. You know, that's
Yes.
what that is. But thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the half support. We rarely ever get half supports to 2 funds, but we will be making sure to invest in the Corgi Chewy Fund. I guess that just means we tenderize the corgis and make them chewy. I'm just kidding.
Man, that's dark.
Man, that's deep. But still, thank you so much for the Corgi Chewy Fund, and also thank you for the Pizza Fund as well. I have to say, Matthew, that my favorite pizza that I got today from Capella's was the Palermo pizza again. That once again knocked it out of the park and was the winner.
I like the margarita the best. It's just simple. It's almost like you're eating like tomato soup on bread.
Yeah, there's a good quality to be had in the simplicity of that one, but I still love the Palermo. It's just different kinds of peppers, onions, sausage. It's amazing. It's a great pizza. But thank you so much for the half support to the Pizza Fund, because you know what kind of pizza we like now, and it's Capella's Pizza all the way. And thank you so much also for helping out the Corgi Chewy Fund, because the Corgis love this thing called FB, and to try and say it where they don't pick up on the code through the door, it is a kind of kind of a chewy bone that consists largely of of the processed product of wheat that is also used to make bread. If you get my drift there, it looks kind of like baking soda, but you know, it's what's made of wheat. It's like a flour. It is flour, and it's a bone made of the stuff, and they love it. It's like crack for them, and I don't know why. Like they go insane for this thing, and it's just raw flour, but they love it, and so that's probably what we're putting that into is those things, so that way we could watch Shiva spin around on the floor at 1,000,000 miles an hour wanting the treat. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is an $18 super chat from Louis11. We also have a $12 super chat from Nick, as well as a $14 super chat from Jack Ray, and he says keep on rolling, and the other two don't have comments attached to them. But thank you all three, Louis, Jack, and also Nick, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you to all three of y'all so much for the support, and thank you, Jack Ray, for saying keep on rolling, because we are keeping this thing rolling. I think, and you know, it's something that's kind of been on and off, because I started feeling a little sick around the same time Matthew got really sick, and now I'm kind of feeling like I'm coming down with it again. Hopefully that's not the case. Whatever is happening to me, hopefully I just power through it. Hopefully I'm built different or something, so that way I don't get sick. But if I get sick, we are still going to try and keep this thing rolling, because I actually don't know what to do on days that we don't do this. It's just a part of my life, to the point that it's routine. So I can't really just walk off and not do it, because it just mentally feels weird. And so we will be keeping this thing rolling, hopefully regardless, unless if I get very bad sick. And thank you so much to all three of y'all once again for the support. Two of y'all didn't leave comments, but the support means a lot and helps this thing to keep on rolling. Y'all help us to keep the lights on, which AKA means pay rent. Because, you know, rent's not cheap, although we're living in the basement. And thank you so much for everything, because y'all help us to be able to do this as a job. Y'all help us to pay our bills and keep the lights on. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to do this as a full-time job and keep this channel rolling. And so thank y'all so much once again. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Cliff H, and he says, just a shout out to the LSA rank and file. The personalities we have in the chat are awesome, and way over 1 million in fundraising. And you are amazing, LSA, and let's keep it rolling.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for being proud of passing 1 million, because 1 million is something that no channel has really ever been able to do. I think that actually makes some channels jealous of us. Of course, Matthew, we know the name of that one. Because
yes, indeed, he can't keep her name out of his mouth.
Yeah, he can't. And then people will be going, oh my god, can you drop it? Listen, we've tried so many times at this point, I've given up. Because we drop it, and we'll try and move on, and then he instigates the crap, and then we respond to it, and then he wants to act like he's the victim and we started it. So at this point, I'm just like, to hell with it. You know, we're going to get his ass. That's all I can say. So stay tuned, stay watching. The day of reckoning will come. We're going to turn into Papa John's. We're going to turn to Papa John over here.
I'm confident we're going to hold him responsible, but I have to admit that he's gotten all of his buddies to come and harass us. He's harassed us, and it's never stopped, and he keeps bringing it up. And I'll be totally honest with you, after a while, it gets so tiring to deal with this constantly. All these degenerates just showing up out of the woodwork, taking shots at us. It's absolutely ridiculous, you know, and it's all spurred on by that one idiot.
And to be completely unfiltered with y'all, what's interesting is that all of his friends have been arrested, and they have like mugshots and stuff, or they are felons and they admit it. You know, it's like the myriad of like the band of thugs that are his friends. It's like you don't have a single upstanding friend that is coming out of anywhere right now. They're all just, you know, super questionable people. And then this guy sits there and wants to go, oh, you know, I'm going to expose them. What are you exposing? It's not like we're hiding anything from anyone. Everything is pretty straightforward. And some people are asking who is it. If you don't know who it is, that's great. And if you know who they are, then we're telling you all about it and what we're thinking about it and everything. Because unlike the other person, we don't sit there and whine to our audience and try and have them brigade on other people, because that's still against YouTube's community guidelines, whether they actually enforce that openly or not. That is against the guidelines. And I know one thing, here's what would happen. We would sit there and say a direct response to this guy, and knowing his stupid playbook, because he's already doing it with him coming into our emails and trying to harass us in our emails, he would sit there and go, they're harassing me, guys, go report him, mass report him. And then that's what would happen. You know, and then YouTube would sit there, you know, with how it works, and then they would arbitrarily enforce the rules or something. So, you know, that is what it is. But it's just gotten so annoying to us. And it's one of the few things that makes me tired of doing this. You know, like, rather than that, I've always been happy to do this. I get up and I eat, breathe, and sleep doing this and covering the war and helping out folks and everything like that. And then this guy just sits out there and he makes it his life purpose because we were talking to someone else to make it his problem. You know, we've tried to deal with this so many times, and the guy's just been an asshole behind the scenes. Like, hell, at some point, we actually invited him to come on to our year's podcast, and he blew us off until he actually knew we were running a podcast, and then he wants to reach out to us and act like he didn't know what the hell Discord call meant. You know, and it's stupid stuff like that. So, you know, it just annoys the hell out of us. And I hate to burden y'all with it, but it's just tiresome. You know, like, we sit here behind the background and we try and work on this stuff behind the scenes while his arrested friends with mugshots go and harass Matthew in the emails and are coming up with slander stories, and he's out there just continuing on the slander or supporting people who are slandering us. And then lying, you know, and then he went over to Ukraine. He said, "Oh, I'm going to tell everyone about you." So he's going to go and defame us, or try and defame us to everyone he can, you know. And somehow he's the just warrior in this cause. I mean, hell, even his friends didn't like him. You know, one of his friends went and emailed us and all that stuff. So, you know, it's like, this is just annoying. It's gotten tiresome to us at this point on that stuff. And some people are like, we're still here, just move forward. And I know, but it's a whole different thing if you deal with it. Like, it feels like a whole different area. It just feels like no matter what you do, like, you can drop it and it's like, oh, look, he stopped talking about us. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, he starts it up again. And then he wants to act like he's the victim of his own stupid decisions, which is the story of this guy's life. He's the victim of every stupid decision he's ever made, and then he wants to act like it's everyone else's fault but himself, just avoiding accountability from every single step of the way. But anyways, we're going, like, I say we're not going to mention it again, but I'm sure, knowing this guy, he'll say some stupid crap or something. He'll be making a special stream here probably in an hour, trying to sit there, you know, and all that crap. So we'll probably have to bring this up again, but we'll try and bring it up as little as we possibly can. And no, it's not the inventor guy. It's the other guy. It's the M&M guy. But anyways,
it's all of them. They're all working together as a group.
Yeah, pretty much. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from none other than, guess who? Will Riley.
Hey!
Do you remember Will?
What?
You got to remember Will, don't you?
I do remember Will.
Yes, and he says, Mr. Cheney now has no way to get out of Crimea after spending his vacation hunting commie faces there, and how is he going to make it back to the U.S. to hunt the elusive pipsqueak bird?
And pipsqueak, what the hell is a pipsqueak? That's like a pipsqueak, but like a different kind of pipsqueak. Let me pull that up. Pipsqueak. Pipsqueak. I don't know what
it's that special bird that only Dick Cheney hunts.
Interesting. I can't find it. I actually can't find a pipsqueak. But still, thank you, Will Riley, for the massive amount of support. Dick Cheney is back. Dick Cheney hasn't been around in a while, and Dick Cheney is ready to go. And so thank you so much for the support, helping this channel to keep on running, because, Will, it has been a while, and we're happy to have you back, and we're happy to hear the classic Dick Cheney joke. And so with that, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and sharing with us an amazing Dick Cheney joke. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Laura Carr, and thank you very much, Laura, for that support. And she says, your analysis of weaponry is gold. Can't get that on network TV. And any thoughts on the troop buildup by Liman Kupiansk?
Liman Kupiansk, let me go find that real quick, because I think we actually covered that tonight. And it's all the way up here. I think it's near Drovchina. Yeah, here it is. Wait, Liman Kupiansk. Yeah, that would be the general area. This would be the Liman near Kupiansk. From what we've heard, it's some kind of a new attempt of a small micro-offensive by the Russians to make some ground in this area, but I don't know what it would be achieving. I guess trying to cut off the Ukrainian forces at Drovchina, but they have to cross this river here, the Oskil River, and it's going to be a little bit of an issue. So I wouldn't really consider it to be that much of a problem unless if they cross the river and they start to get close to Subotny, because then they'll actually be in the possibility of encircling or cutting off Ukrainian forces at Dvorchina, up here further north, where the real fighting is happening in this area. So that's what I would be thinking of that at the moment. I wouldn't put too much concern on it for now, unless it really starts to change the situation. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Epic Trains Canada, and thank you very much for that support. And they said, add this to your pizza fund, and also, how is Pizza Hut in Alabama? And in my experience, Pizza Hut is amazing in the Midwestern states, but not that great up here in Canada. And Igor!
Igor!
And Slava Ukraine!
And Slava Ukraine! And I would have to answer that question by saying Pizza Hut is honestly the worst from what I remember down here in Alabama. Like, imagine a frozen pizza and you cook it, and then you pull out a can of spray grease and you just spray that thing down until it's a literal pool of grease that is resting within the walls of the crust. That is like what Pizza Hut is like down here. And that's why we were never really big Pizza Hut fans, because the only pizza restaurant we had in our old hometown was Pizza Hut. And that led to a demand for people to want more restaurants. And so we were wanting a Papa John's up there. And I think they actually did end up getting a Papa John's right before we moved. I think it was like a few months before. You know, and everyone wanted everything. They just didn't want what was there. But Pizza Hut was terrible where we were from. I haven't had Pizza Hut since because it was that bad. But yeah, I mean, you know, there are a lot of better pizza brands out there, at least here in the South. There's Domino's, which I think is better than them. Papa John's is certainly better than them most of the time here in Alabama. You know, of course, the mom and pop shops, if you can find them, they are great. And so I hope that answers that fairly well on the Pizza Hut side of things. And can you reread the super chat, Matthew, just to make sure we didn't miss anything?
It says, add this to your pizza fund, and also, how is Pizza Hut in Alabama? And their experience in the Midwest is amazing, but not that great in Canada.
Okay, so hopefully, so I did address everything there. I was just making sure. And thank you so much for the support to the Pizza Fund in helping us to continue to eat pizza, because pizza is our favorite food, I think, for the most part. I mean, that's the thing I feel like we eat the most. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Digital Blooddeca, and thank you very much for that support as well. And they said, you guys rock.
And thank you so much for the support, saying we rock because we try our best. It means a lot to us that people compliment us, and I gotta say that y'all rock. Y'all are really the ones that rock on this channel. We, of course, just do this, but if it wasn't for the amazing community that we had in the live chat and watching this stream every single night, this stream wouldn't be as special as it was, and y'all add a great deal to it. And so with that, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope we address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Raj Kapoor, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Raj, for that support. He says, a video from Covert Cabal says that over 5,500 artillery pieces have been removed from Russian storage after analyzing their storage satellite images, and the Russian artillery losses have been insane.
And I would agree, the Russian artillery losses have been insane. I can't speak to the accuracy of that statement, though, from the other YouTube channel, because I haven't done enough research to see if it is accurate or not. And I know that a lot of people would like us to just take things at face value, but usually from whatever source, whether it be a YouTube channel or anything for that matter, even if it is outside of YouTube, most of the time, for some reason, whenever we take things at face value, it always ends up being wrong. So we have to give everything the benefit of the doubt now. But I would probably say that that's a fairly true statement. I don't even know if they have that much artillery, honestly, to pull out of reserve. They have run out at that point, most likely. But they have been suffering massive artillery losses, especially frontline losses, where you see about 10 batteries being destroyed per day. That's huge. You can't even mentally wrap your head around 10 whole artillery batteries being wiped out. If you put all 40 of those guns into a single picture, the loss would be unfathomable to imagine in a whole day's worth of fighting. And so with that, Thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Chase Maddie, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much for that support.
Hey!
And I really do apologize for the coughing tonight, folks. I really cannot control it. If I could, I would stop that immediately because it's so annoying. But Chase Maddie says, is a Strela anti-air cheap version of an Avenger anti-air system or comparable, or is the anti-air version of the Striker? And love you, LSA.
And thank you so much, Chase Maddie, for loving the LSA. And to answer that question, the Strela is a comparable system to the Avenger system. If we take a look at the Strela, it's really just Strela surface-to-air missiles. It's kind of like the man pads, but they're carried in these little silos up here on top of this mount. And what's really funny about this, something that people may not know, is that it's all operated through this little plexiglass thing down here. That's where the operator sits, and he physically looks out of that window right there towards the target, and he spools up one of those missiles and he fires it. That's how the system works. It's very primitive, but nonetheless, it is very similar to the Avenger, because if we pull up the Avenger AA system, and let me go get that right here, you can see this is actually almost identical. You can see the operator sitting right there. He's behind a plexiglass shield, and he has nothing but stingers sitting inside of these little nacelles. But the Avenger does have an advantage because it gets 8 Stinger missiles, so it carries twice the firepower that a Strela carries with its 4 Strela missiles. So it is better by just overall ammo carrying capacity, but they're largely the same. They kind of fill the same role on the front lines and are probably about as effective as each other, except I think that the Strela, and now this is something I'm going to have to just let y'all find out, but I think the Strela is a fire and forget, much like the Stinger. And so if it is, it's exactly the same as a Avenger system. It's just that the Avenger carries more ammo at the ready. But I would honestly take the Avenger any day because I trust American engineering over Soviet engineering every single day of the week. The only thing at this point that I actually have started to change my mind on due to a revelation is the AKs. I'm actually kind of becoming a believer in AKs now. It's interesting because I have come upon something that is actually pretty neat. It's an East German AK-74. And up until this point, I thought AKs were garbage. And the only AK that I had, it was pretty trash. It sucked. But I got this East German one, and this thing shoots like butter. Like, it has no recoil. It's incredibly accurate. And it's also pretty, like, you know, AKs are pretty straightforward to clean. There's very few parts inside of one. But that one is actually not bad at all. It is East German, so it's not Russian, so maybe that's what it is. It's just better quality. But then again, you can't really get better on the quality of an AK. It's all stamp parts for the most part, except for the things that are milled, like the barrel, the receiver, all that crap. But it's a really good gun. And what we were thinking, you know, just to let y'all into a little idea here that we had, what we were thinking in the background is that when we eventually get into gun review videos, we may try and do some that lean into the history of the guns, like the East German AK-74 versus something comparable that would have been in West Germany, and trying to compare the two in a standoff and show which one was better. Because I was thinking that would be a really cool idea to do gun review videos on. Some people have kind of done that before, but it's a category that no one has really done like overboard, and I was thinking we could maybe do that overboard. And so that's what we're kind of thinking. But beyond that, I would always go with American equipment. American equipment will always be better. And even though that East German AK-74 is sweet, I still think that AR platforms are just better. Although that AK has really knocked that the AKs as a whole, in my mind, up a whole bunch of notches. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from John Underwood, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, John, for that support and helping to keep us running. We also have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, somebody get the buffalo sauce because these Ukrainians are cooking up Russian chickens who try to run away tonight and feed them to the HIMARS and Slav Ukraine.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Thank you so much for the support, and I would have to agree with you. Someone pull out the hot sauce. These little suckers are being cooked up. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And I would agree, they trying to run from those HIMARS. Sad thing is, you can't outrun the HIMARS. It just has too far of a range. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to P. Sar, who puts in a $5 donation and says, newbie here, and didn't know you were out of Birmingham, and greetings from a new fan from Western Georgia. And we have a lot of viewers from Georgia, and also welcome to the stream.
And welcome to a newbie. That means that you are a soldat of the Lee Spring Army, as Matthew continues to hack and hack and hack.
Yeah, I thought I muted.
That's fine. You just hear it quietly in the background. It just sounds like you're choking to death over there. You just hear it's like, oh, no, that's it. He's fine. But still, thank you so much for the support. Being from West Georgia, you're pretty close to Birmingham, the biggest city in Alabama. And also, really cool to hear that you've been enjoying it, because it's always cool to hear people in kind of our neck of the woods here in the southeastern United States, because for some reason they seem to be the most rare. We just don't really see them much. And so thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And welcome to the Lee Spring Army, which is the community of the Enforcer channel. Someone will probably fill you in on what Lee Spring Army means, because it's a weird name for a community, but don't worry, that'll happen fairly soon. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Johan 1994 Carlson, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much for that support. And he said, great channel, you guys, and cannot wait to see the CV-90 to smash the Russian lines. And greetings from Gothenburg, Sweden.
Hey, Gothenburg, Sweden. Look at that. Look at that. He's from the port city of Gothenburg. And this is actually kind of like a big port city inside of Sweden. So let's see what we got down here at Haga. Let's see here. There's many jokes that could be made.
We're going to make Sweden great again. Haga, Haga. Hype it up, everyone.
No.
Hype it.
Uh-oh, here comes the firestorm. But anyways, really nice, actually. Let's see what we got down here. Let's see. We got balls. Oh, neat. That's cool.
That's weird.
That's kind of weird, but I'm not going to question it. What else do we have? We have a wooden clad... No, that kind of looks like an aluminum building. I don't know what that is. Haga. Let's see here. We got a flag of the EU. We got Jacob's Cafe. What in the world do you got in Jacob's Cafe? You got lasagna, club sandwiches. You got the kickling. You've got the something in broccoli. Mozzarella, something with mozzarella. A lot of this stuff I just can't read. There are potatoes, though. Baked potatoes. I can tell that. Bakad patatas. That has got to be baked potatoes. Like, I can see that. Chicken and curry? Maybe that's it. Maybe, if we know that, maybe we can go back. So there's chicken and something else, but that part's fallen off the menu. And then there's just normal chicken. Let's see here. And they got salad. And then they got pasta salad. And chicken and pasta salad. Look, I'm learning Swedish here. I'm like actually learning it from reading a menu. Tonfisk and Og. I don't know what that is. Chevrolet and Valnog. Cool. And then they got quinoa and chicken. And then they got mozzarella. Man, this place is kind of bougie with the kind of food they have in there.
I'm surprised you knew what that quinoa was.
Quinoa? Yeah, I was about to butcher that. I was about to say quinoa. But then I was like, it has to be quinoa. I've heard that somewhere. But man, look at their desserts. They got a little bit of everything in there. They got Snickers.
Wow.
They got the Snickers caca. Dude, when you're fighting a war with Sweden and they whip out the Snickers caca. No, I give up. Don't fight me. But anyways, man, this is a nice place. I gotta say, you know, one thing I'm always amazed with is the cleanliness of a lot of European cities. They're always so clean to the compared to U.S. cities, and it's always impressive. And that's one thing I'm always blown away with, because in my little chimp-like brain, everything's got to be really clean out in public, because it makes it where you want to be there, and it also makes it a lot more valuable, the property a lot more valuable when things are extremely clean. And so it just blows me away to see streets like these where there is like no trash. There's not even a litter of a receipt or paper anywhere stuck on the road. It's all perfectly clean. I don't know how. I mean, I guess they just have a massive part of the city works that just goes around, and there's a sanitation department that cleans this place up. Otherwise, I couldn't explain how clean this thing is. It's just amazing. But I would certainly say a beautiful city Gothenburg is, at least this part. let's go. Wait, really quickly. I know we're spending a long time here because I always love looking at places like this. But let's go into a neighborhood in Sweden. And what does it look like? Oh, this is really nice, dude. This looks a lot like Denmark or the Netherlands.
Very well kept everywhere.
Yeah, very well kept. Little weeds here and there growing on the side of the street, but you can expect that with like curbs and stuff. It just happens. But wow, this place is so clean. I'm always blown away by this. Like, the Scandinavian countries especially are super clean, along with the Benelux countries. They're also very clean. And it just blows me away because even Birmingham, which is a very nice city, really the only city in Alabama, it is still kind of a little grimy in downtown. Like, it just doesn't seem clean. And it also isn't clean. There's just trash, like, floating around the streets and stuff down there. And it's always just crazy to me. You can go to the suburban areas, the rural areas, or you can be in the middle of an urban area, and everything is clean. It just blows me away. I wish the United States was like that, and every city heavily invested in beautification projects, cleanliness, and keeping up the roadworks, because by doing those three basic things, really any city could stay on top of the game and be a very competitive one for businesses to go to, because it looks nice and people will want to be there. And, you know, everyone would take care of everything else. The city just has to take care of the basic necessities, but still amazing nonetheless, and beautiful place. And thank you so much for being a Lee Spring Army viewer from Gothenburg in Sweden, and thank you so much for enjoying this channel as well and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat, as always, from CK Bold, who, of course, says, I'll take a live chat question. And CK Bold, thank you very much for being so consistent with that support, and also putting in the exact same request. I know what to expect every single night out of your super chat, and also, we will grab that live chat question.
Yeah,
and it goes to...
Before you do, Matthew, CK Bold, I know you're going to put in another one of those tomorrow. Just type in that one. I'll have the usual, and we'll know what it means, because that'll be so funny. And so with that, let's get the live chat now.
And the live chat question goes to White Wolf, who says, if Turkey reflagged those grain ships and Russia attacked them, would that invoke Article 5?
I think it would, if those ships how in the world is that? Reported, I think is the term. Or, no, if those ships change their home ports to Turkish home ports, I think they actually would get Turkish protections, from what I understand. So, yes, I think that actually would work, at least from what I understand. My limited understanding of maritime law, that could possibly work. Or even flying a Turkish flag may work. I don't even think they need to be based out of Turkey. But with that, thank you so much for the support, and CK Bold, and helping us to sponsor that live chat. And I hope we answer that the best I can. But, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I haven't said that in a long time. But take it with a grain of salt, because I might be wrong on that one. But that's how I would understand it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, CK Bold, for sponsoring that live chat.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Crimson FC. And thank you very much for that support as well. And he said, hey, Enforcer, and what do you think of recent progress in the Kamyansk direction in the south? Deep state maps show progress toward that area.
I would have to say it appears to be promising. It appears that they're starting to move forward. But you can never really tell, because sometimes these assaults from the Ukrainians look promising, and then they just stop. Like, I'll go to Kamyansk real quick, and let me go make sure I'm going to the right spot. Nope, that's not it. Let me go make sure to type in Kamyansk, because I think in my very hot, diluted state right now, I'm forgetting where Kamyansk is. So let me go put it in. That cannot be the right Kamyansk. Is that how it's spelled?
Yes, it is, actually.
Damn, that's not close to the front. Let me see if there's a different one, because there's got to be another one of those somewhere in Ukraine. So there's a Kamyanka in the Cherkasy Oblast, but that's way over west. There's a Kamyanka Dnipropetrovsk. Okay, that's near the power plant, so that's not it. Kamyansk. There's some of them in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast again, and I'm trying to think. Kamyanske in the Zaporizhia Oblast? Okay, so here we go. This is what we're... So the advances in this area are kind of related to the ones happening in Pyatsky-Kotki right now, where they're trying to overrun the Russian forces at Zarabianki. They appear to be promising, but this area is one that is very important for the Russians to hold because it's right on the main highway. So if the Ukrainians start to push down to Zarabianki, Lhove, and then they make it through Vasilivka, they're now on the main highway that leads directly to Melitopol. So the Russians are probably, if they were to sacrifice any part of the front line, this would be the part that would be sacrificed last without a fight, because it truly just does lead directly to the end objective of the entire offensive, which is Melitopol. So it looks promising for now, and if the Ukrainians continue to make this kind of progress, it may end up being promising. But at the moment, it's really hard to tell because it's probably the most strategic axis on that part of the front at the moment. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, and a very good question as well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and our next one goes to Isidore, who puts in a 10 and says, "Hi from Sweden again, and can you check my hometown Sundsvall? And I did my conscription in artillery archer."
And thank you so much for the support, and also, may not be a Swede, but thank you for your service in the Swedish army. I know it's conscription, so it's a mandatory thing, but that's still pretty cool to hear that you were on the Archer SPG. And let me show everyone what the Archer SPG looks like again. This is it. Pretty cool looking, isn't it? It looks like a very slimmed down Caesar SPG, and they are cool. And so really cool that you actually served on an Archer. And let's go take it. Where is Sundsvall relative to the rest of the country? Good Lord, you were up there. You were way up there. Dang. Like, usually everyone in Sweden kind of just lives down in this area here. And then this area is completely uninhabited nearly, except for a few towns here and there. But, man, this is north. So let's see what this looks like. And you know something that's very interesting, sharing with you all a little fun fact about the Scandinavian countries here, is that Scandinavian countries have the highest literacy rate in the world, thanks to their countries, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong if you're a Swede and I'm getting this wrong, it was due to a particular sect of Protestantism that came out of the 16th century called Lutheranism. And Lutheranism required that every citizen be able to read and understand the Bible. And so their incredibly high literacy rates historically, where their whole population could read and write and speak their languages, was because of the Lutheran tradition of teaching them how to read so that way they could just read and understand the Bible, which allowed them to read and understand everything else. So their literacy rate was 100% practically from the 17th century on. But I like this town. This is clean. Moving on beyond that fun fact, which is just a cool thing to know about Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Norway. But, man, you know what this looks like right here?
What's that?
This kind of looks like a city, like just in this one spot, looking down this train track, from like the 1930s or 40s. I don't know why I'm getting that feeling, but it looks a lot like that. But I like this place. It's
pretty cool looking.
Yeah, I like this little tree-lined avenue right here. This is a very nice place. Man, I always hate looking at like, it's a love-hate relationship with looking at things on Google Earth, because every time I look at them, I want to take a trip there, but I can't. And also at the same time, I just love looking at places around the world. And the Scandinavian countries are so cool, and I just love them. They're very neat, very interesting cultures, and very beautiful places. But let's see if we can drop out of downtown, which I think is where we were, and let's go over to, let's see, we'll go here because this is kind of in the same town. It looks like there were different towns further up. And let's go to a neighborhood. And what does a neighborhood look like? So the streets are showing strain from the constant compression and expansion from the heat and cold. But this is a really nice place. You know, Matthew, what this kind of looks like? This kind of looks like a university campus right here with like that nice mowed lawn and like the apartments right here.
Yeah, it does. That grass almost looks fake. It's so green.
Yeah, you know, the grass is always greener is what they say. And in Sweden, I think it's true. But a really cool place. I mean, you know what's weird is that I don't know what in Sweden y'all consider to be the nice parts of town and the bad parts of town. I mean, like, hell, we could be going through the Swedish equivalent of a ghetto right now, and it all looks so nice, you can't really even tell. It just looks super clean, super nice. It's like places you would go all over the place. I don't know what the crime rate's like in Sweden either. I think it's like next to nothing from what I remember. But damn, I'm just blown away. It's so nice everywhere. I wonder what the property values are. They've got to be like sky high. Like, this thing's probably like 1.5 million in front of us.
Probably so. Probably very high.
Yeah, probably very high. Probably higher than a kite. Higher than Snoop Dogg. But anyways, with that, thank you so much for the support. And look at that. Wow, that's even a better picture of the town. That just shows you the whole thing. Why are they so clean? I just wonder that. It's always just so clean, way beyond anything that you see in America. And I've just got to rant and rave about that because cleanliness is great. It just is. You know, like you never realize it until you go somewhere that's super clean and you're like, this is the way everything should be. It just should be kept clean. But thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. Dr. BS said, looks like a normal place here. And that's just insane that is what y'all consider normal because I'll show y'all like downtown Birmingham to give y'all an idea of what the best.
Also, we have about 7 super chats left, by the way.
Oh, that's no big deal. We can rabbit hole for a little bit, but I'll show y'all what downtown Birmingham looks like just to give you an idea of how it compares. So I'll just drop y'all down on this street here, and this is what downtown Birmingham just looks like across the entirety of it. And this is considered the best looking town in Alabama, pretty much. You know, if you're talking about like a big city, this is the best looking one. And so whenever you see Scandinavian towns that are like super clean and really nice, it's like, it just blows me away because I'm like, man, like this is the best of the best in Alabama, and it looks rough compared to what is in Sweden and stuff. So it just blows me away. And then you're all like, oh yeah, that's normal. I'm like, that would be like Disney World levels of niceness over here. So, you know, and so if you would just say, yikes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's what our downtowns look like. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I saw Murray Dog 100 say in the live chat, and I meant to call this out earlier. He said, Enforcer Matt, Professor Gerdes, I believe is how it's pronounced, hopefully I'm not butchering that name, gave you guys a nice shout out today. And I did see that, and also he sent us an email as well, congratulating us on our Kerch Bridge coverage the night that happened. So, also, I want to re-shout out Professor Gerdes as well for giving us that very kind words, and also the shout out himself. And it's really cool to know he watches as well, and he also has his own YouTube channel. And just want to say thank you for the shout out. And with that being said, oh yes.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. We can move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 5 and says, you know you want that fish on a pizza. And hell no.
Oh, hell no. No, I wouldn't want that thing on a pizza anytime. But still, thank you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Bob Dole, who puts in a $5 donation, and Bob Dole says, I was late to this cool party, fashionably, so how great are the Ukrainians doing today?
They're doing pretty good today. They've inflicted some very high losses on the Russians. Still some very small frontline changes, but the losses are kind of what's counting at this point in the war. And so they did really good today. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $3 super chat from A-Dub. Y'all knew that was coming. And A-Dub says, would a suitably sized ballistic shield be usable or beneficial in trench warfare? And can they stop AK bullets and shrapnel?
And great question. They would stop shrapnel. I don't know how effective they would be, but if it hit directly on the plate, it would stop the shrapnel. However, I can't really say how heavy ballistic shields have to get to stop rifle caliber rounds, and that may make them ineffective weight-wise, because the level 4 plates that can actually stop rifle grade rounds, those get very heavy, just because they're steel plates pretty much, so they're very heavy. And I don't know how heavy a shield would have to be and how big it would get to stop rifle rounds, so it may prove to be ineffective to try and carry one of those things, because you also have to remember that guy at the front, he's going to be the first guy around the corner, and so if the Russians are fast, you know, and this guy is probably going to be using both of his hands to hold the shield, they can just yank him forward, blast him away, and then the squad has lost their shield man or their point man. So it probably wouldn't end up being that effective from what I understand. And also, remember, those things probably would weigh 60 pounds maybe, I would assume, for a level 4 plate, well, level 4 shield to be able to stop a rifle round. It's maybe 60 pounds. And if a grenade gets thrown, this guy has to drop the shield, and then he has to be able to run. And he just has to leave the shield behind, because there's no way in hell he's getting up and running with a 60-pound shield in front of him. It's just no way. So I would say it would largely be ineffective in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe they need to try that in simulations, see if it would be effective. Maybe it would be. But my inclination would be that it probably wouldn't be able to help them out too much. It may become an encumbrance to that point man. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Persona Incognito, who says, Putin's puppet, Sergei Lavrov, can go to jail.
And I wish he would. You know, he went to Italy and he had a wedding there, and for some reason the Italians didn't arrest the guy. And I was hoping they would, because obviously he's a pretty sick guy. He's like the Hermann Goering of Russia. And so
I'm telling you, there's no chance that anybody arrests any of these people that have warrants out for them, because that would spark something a lot worse than simply arresting someone.
Yeah, that's true. That would actually be pretty severe. So, you know, I wish they would, but obviously the implications are pretty severe. But with that, thank you for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Cahoe Warren, who puts in a $2 donation and says Russia wants civilians on the bridge. And I don't know why they'd want that, because if that thing collapses and those people die from, trying to cross that collapsed bridge, that would be a bad look, to say the least. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. They want them on that bridge, and it would be a bad look, but they would probably try and blame it on Ukraine somehow. We wouldn't have to tell them to drive over the collapsing bridge if it wasn't for them blowing it up, something stupid. But yeah, they do want them on that bridge. It's a stupid thing, though, and it's putting civilians directly in harm's way. And once again, they're trying to use them as shields to protect the bridge by just pumping traffic over it, even when it's not even able to have traffic put over it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from John Asturias. And thank you very much, John, for that support. He says, recap what Leaf Spring Army is for us noobs.
And thank you for the support. And to address what the Elite Spring Army is, way back in the day, it was like the 26th day of the war, there was a burning Panzer S1 in the field, and I was joking about its leaf spring suspension, because I didn't understand that leaf springs were still used on most modern vehicles, so I said it was an archaic form of suspension that just isn't used anymore, and people flamed me for that for 2 days straight. And then finally, we just embraced it as a joke right after it happened. I think 20 minutes later, we were like, let's just roll with it as a joke. And then the next day, Lee Spring Army, I think, was coined for the first time ever. And that's how our community got its name. So everyone who subscribes to this channel is known as a soldier of the Lee Spring Army. And of course, one thing and this is something that, I always have to sit there and throw out disclaimers and stuff, because, there's stupid haters out there, and someone said, he's saying it's an army, he's trying to create a militia. No, it's not that kind of army. It's like the Salvation Army, pretty much. It's just a cool name for a group of people who help out in Ukraine. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have a $2 super chat from Randy Tosto, and thank you very much, Randy, for that support. And he said, hello from Agua Dulce, California. Vesquez rocks.
Hey, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for being from California. That's way away from Alabama. That's on the other side of the country. It really is the other side of the country. That's about as west as you can go, because the next state over from that is just the ocean. That's not even a state. But still, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running all the way from California, because without folks like you, this channel wouldn't be possible. And so thank you. Thank you so much once again. Thank you very much for helping this channel to keep on running. Because without folks like you, this channel would not be possible. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, we are fresh out of super chat questions, so we are moving on to our live chat questions, and there is no cap right there, and that it is facts. And we're moving on to our Morse code decoders of the night, which are Mark Hodges, C-Fay, Cliff Simonson, Earl Renew, and Paul Schultz, the very consistent Morse code decoders. And they said tonight's Morse code cipher is, the LSA achieved the impossible again. And great job, Ev. Long live the LSA, and glory to Ukraine.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all got that right on the jackpot. That is the correct Morse code message. The Lee Spring Army, I brag honestly so much that it doesn't even really mean anything to anyone anymore. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the live chat about that. But the Lee Spring Army is something amazing. And one thing that we saw this last Sunday, raising $20,000, is that the Lee Spring Army still cares as much for Ukraine now as it ever has. And that always just blows us away every single day. And it blows everyone we know away, too, because they can't believe that this community is able to raise that much money. No one ever sees communities that do that on YouTube. It's a special one, a unique one that will probably never exist again outside of this channel. And I got to thank everyone for being a part of it. And I got to thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again tonight. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank y'all for amazing the LSA with y'all's amazing skills again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our first live chat question goes to James Post, who says, did the Brits ever announce that they'd be sending chieftains in addition to the challengers?
They never did, and that's like the weird thing that I had to point out in that video is that it was a chieftain Mark 11, and it was, well, chieftain Mark 10 or 11, and it was not a challenger. So I've never heard them announce that, and that's also why I had to go through the rabbit hole of explaining what that tank was and what it can do. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Plexus Gaming. He says, is there any truth to the reports I hear that Ukraine is looking to cross into Russian territory?
I've heard about that. I've heard about them attacking with their weapons into Russian territory, but I haven't heard about the Ukrainian army saying they're going to march into Russian territory. That I have not heard. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Aimless Savant, who says, how many, if any, F-16s would make a meaningful difference in the air war?
The F-16s would make a massive difference in the air war because their anti-radar abilities with the AGM-88 HARM and being able to properly use them would disable Russian surface-to-air missile systems, and also their air-to-air fighting abilities with other aircraft would make sure that the Russians would be dominated in the skies by the F-16 and the Ukrainians would be able to achieve air superiority over Russian territory, well, Russian-occupied territory, and so that would be a massive change. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are going to be answering 3 more questions, and then we are going to be moving on to the end of the stream. We're now moving on beyond that. That is the end. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Andrew, who says, is it possible for Ukraine to get a private air force, either volunteer or paid?
Wait, reread that one again?
Is it possible for Ukraine to get a private air force, either volunteer or paid?
I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, I would have to declare ignorance on that one, sadly. And so with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Krabby, who says, why don't Ukraine finish the bridge off now that it's down for the count?
Good question. I don't know why. It seems as though they always stop just a little ways away from completely destroying it. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because they don't want to freak the Russians out too much. And that's why they do it, and they're really just looking to cause some supply line issues and panic for the Russians, but nothing that will be serious and long-lasting, perhaps, maybe. And so with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who took the, who was the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is George Ferguson, who says, do you think that when Russia calls it quits, that NATO will put a rush to include Ukraine in its organization?
Oh, certainly. I think they will, especially if the war officially ends. They will be rushing to get Ukraine in because we've been working on that so far during the war. Now, wouldn't that be how do I put that in wordage right? You know what, I'm just going to say it. Wouldn't that be a real bitch if they didn't do that at the end of the war? Now, that would be something that...
Oh, I'm telling you.
Oh, man.
Tell it how it is.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. That would be really something. But that wouldn't be unprecedented for something like that to happen, but that would really be screwed up if it did. I'm hoping that that doesn't happen. I'm hoping that the chances of that happening are like 7 to 10%. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I think they will certainly be getting in at the end of this war. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. There are 3,700 of y'all on right now still, and I gotta thank you all for joining us tonight and watching this stream all the way from start to finish. It's been 3 hours and 7 minutes long, an incredibly long stream. And I gotta thank every single one of y'all, 3,700 of y'all, for being here with us the entire time through it. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps this channel to keep on growing. And it always makes us really happy when folks subscribe because it shows to us that folks are enjoying what we do. And that encourages us so much more to put our life's effort into this thing. And so, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
And good night, LSA. Thank you all for another great stream, and go peep the Twitter, and happy coughing.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.